Welcome, everyone, to episode 27 of 3 in the Keystone. Have the normal crew with you on this Monday night, Chris and Al, and we got an action-packed episode for you tonight. The NFL season is over. The Philadelphia Eagles have clinched the number 1 seed. The Philadelphia Phillies continue to be active in the offseason. We're going to preview Wildcard weekend and just a lot more, but I have to start the show with my boy Al. Al, you tried something new last week. You threw out some golf winners for the Century Tournament of Champions, and one of the names you threw out was Collin Morikawa. Why don't you tell the listeners how that turned out for you yesterday?
All right. Well, for those of you who were able to get that pick in, Collin Morikawa had a 6-stroke lead heading into Sunday, which, for all intents and purposes, on the PGA Tour, it equals a victory. 23 for 25 converting up until that point. Morikawa goes on to absolutely choke yesterday in the Tournament of Champions. He's the only golfer in the field, per Justin Ray, who's a great golf follow on Twitter, to have bogeyed 3 holes in a row this past weekend. And he did it when the time was Jon Rahm was kind of flipping everything and ends up going 10 under on the day, and just snatches the lead. I think he started out 7 strokes back on Sunday, Jon Rahm.
Do you know what Morikawa's odds were on the 9th hole?
I saw something along the lines of he at one point he was like minus 11,000 to win
20,000 at the 9th hole. He was minus 20,000, and Jon
Rahm was plus 8,000 at the 8th. So I don't know. Do you guys have a good analogy for how like this is one of the biggest choke jobs in sports in the last I don't know how long. I immediately thought of the Jordan Spieth Masters when Danny Willett won, because that difference.
I mean, and I don't want to dive too far into this, but the difference between the Masters is like the golf course at Kapalua is not a course where you're going to make big numbers. Like, it's not a bogey golf course. The 3 bogeys he made in a row, I think it was 13, 14, and 15, or 14, 15, 16, were the only bogeys he made all week.
Yep.
So it's just a birdie fest, and to give back shots was just unbelievable. But
and a choke fest in a tournament that doesn't really matter. Like it's so crazy that he choked that up.
Listen, all I know is I watched that tournament for about an hour and a half for a total of 4 days, and I didn't watch any golf. I just watched the scenery behind it. That place is
it's a beautiful golf course.
And that's probably what happened. My man probably got caught up in it, was looking at some stuff, some doves and whatnot flying around in the beach, and he forgot how to play golf for a minute.
Well, he's notorious for not having the best short game, and they talked about it all week, how good it looked, and then it bit him on 14 where he bladed it over the green, and that was it. The demons came.
Golf is a game where when it goes bad, you're just out there alone. You are out there alone.
Well, you're literally
there's nothing you can do about it.
Yep. So
Adam, and that's not his reputation either.
Not at all.
Like, no. Yeah. When he won the PGA Championship, it was because like he iced it, like he had it and he iced it. But just to put a bow on that conversation real quick, I did tweet out to take him top 5 as well. So hopefully, if anyone saw the tweet at 3K Podcast on Twitter, you made a little bit of money this past weekend.
Yeah, nobody feels good about the top 5 though. Nobody feels good about cashing that.
Tell me about it. I think I had him at 22-1.
But let's get into our usual segment 1 where we talk Philly sports.
Can I just say something real quick before you start, Seltzer?
Go ahead.
So I was talking to Seltzer before we went on and clicked the button, so to speak, to go live on the show, and watching the national championship, and they have like 5 different broadcasts of this game across all the ESPN platforms. The Skycast broadcast is unbelievable. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's literally the view behind the quarterback, which is also similar to the view on like the video game if you play Madden or something. So like as a video gamer or a coach or anything like that, it's the purest form or the purest view of seeing a football game. They have it from that view, and the best thing about it is there's no commentators. It's literally just the ambience of the crowd noise and the guy in the booth that's just in the stadium, the PA announcer. and that's it. It's awesome. And I first thing I'm doing after we're done this is writing to NBC Sports Philadelphia, having them get that for NBC Sports Plus for Sixers games, so we don't have to listen to Kate and Owl the rest of the season.
Okay. Yeah, no, I texted you that they had that for the semifinals too, and I was watching on that view, and it's phenomenal. You could see,
dude,
so much. Like when guys are running routes, you can see who's open if passes are late. You can see holes when the running backs are running. It's a really,
and I'm
cool
watching
view.
like to see like the slants and stuff that the lines are doing and all that. Like it's incredible. It's so dope. I hope they do that for. Well, who has the Super Bowl this year? NBC.
I don't know.
If ESPN has it or ABC, I hope they have a channel for that for the Super Bowl. That'd be awesome.
But it looks like 24-7. Looks like it won't be much of a game tonight.
Look out for my man Kelly Ringo on the Bulldogs, cornerback, 6'2", about 208, first round. He's going to be right in the Eagles' wheelhouse at 10, and I would pick him in a minute. But we'll have that conversation later on down the road.
Yeah.
No relation to Barkevius Mingo
or
Ringo Starr. So the Eagles clinched the #1 seed yesterday in the NFC with a 22-16 victory over the New York Giants. Not a very pretty victory. Jalen Hurts does get back on the field. At the end of the day, the job was done. But the question I want to throw to you guys to start, are you more encouraged because Jalen Hurts was able to get on the field and play, or are you discouraged by the product that was put on the field yesterday by the Birds? So, Chris, I'll throw it to you first.
I'm 100% encouraged, to be honest with you. The game plan was vanilla on purpose. All right. I think Sirianni and Steichen wanted to get, I'm assuming, because they have been running or passing the ball a lot more than they should be the last few weeks as it is. But I'm assuming with this week that they were doing that on purpose to get Jalen in a rhythm early, which I was fine with that for the first quarter. But as the game went on, I was like, yo, like we need to start handing the ball to our backs. I mean, I'm trying to pull it up here. Miles only had 11 carries. He had 33 yards. Gainwell had 5 for 35. And then the giant killer, Boston Scott. What's that about, by the way? How does this happen? Has this ever happened in any other line of sports where like one guy, just a jobber dude, just kills teams?
Yeah, dude, it happens in Philadelphia all the time. You ever
Jeff Conine.
Jeff Conine.
Jeff Conine was not a jobber.
Yeah, but he wasn't like
at that point in his career. He was when he was doing that to the Phillies. He was at the tail end of his career when he was lighting us up.
I don't know about. Was he on the Phillies at one point?
Yeah, he definitely was.
He did get on the yeah. There's a span of time where I'm like I don't know if it happened to you guys or not, but where I'm like, was this guy on the Phillies before? I feel like I've heard him on the Phillies in like 2013 or something like that. Like I just like randomly get guys in my head that I think about.
Yeah.
But anyway, we ran the ball like around 5.5 yards a carry yesterday, but we only had 25 carries. I would have liked to have seen 35 to 40 carries against the second to third string D line of the Giants. Especially once Hurts got his rhythm going and
did he get a rhythm going?
Well, I mean, as far as like the numbers, if they had him making 15 passes that day or 20 whatever they wanted to do, once he got to that, I would have just went straight run. And I think we would have still been productive with it because the Giants D-line they had their backups in and the whole thing. And we run the ball great anyway against normal regular teams, regular defenses. I don't know why this coaching staff on the offensive side, the last few weeks especially, have gone away from this. It doesn't make sense to me. Miles had, going off memory, I believe 23 or 24 carries 3 weeks ago. And the last 2 weeks combined, he's had that many. Doesn't make sense.
Well, I think there's probably a concerted effort to limit Miles carries in particular, just to avoid any injury. I think they knew that game was in the bag yesterday from the get-go, again, all things considered. But I agree with you. They still could have run. I mean, that's why you saw more Scott, you saw Gainwell. But I think that's why they probably limited Miles's workload, just to make sure he's fresh for 2 weeks from now.
I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, if you're healthy and you're playing the game, you are supposed to be doing your regular role. If you don't do that and you start thinking about not getting hurt, you're going to get hurt. AJ Brown and Devontae, Dallas, they still did their regular thing. Hurts even as far as on the plays where they were passing the ball, he did his regular routine, which is even more dangerous because he's the one we can't afford to lose. And they threw him however many, I don't have it in front of me how many passes he had in that first half, but they threw the ball a lot more than they did run the ball. So that's more dangerous than protecting Miles Sanders.
Yeah, but the more carries Miles gets, every time you touch the ball, there's a risk of injury. That's really the way it comes down to it. You could fall on your shoulder, you could twist an ankle, you could sprain a knee. So I think by just the pure numbers aspect, they said maybe we only want to give him 12 touches today.
To the running back, I think a running back is he's a really good player. He's not a great player.
Yeah, but
you can replace Miles Sanders.
You can. I agree with that, but I don't know if they trust those guys behind them to take on the playoff load. Like now, you want to have them if you can. At the end of the day,
I'm not trying to disrespect Miles Sanders, but what I'm saying is I like him. He's a good player, but they also have a great O-line, and they probably have one of the best run blocking lines in the league. So they could probably if they wanted to put Gainwell back there and have him have 22 carries, he probably can get about 120. Just like Miles could.
You would be okay with in the playoffs potentially not like, I mean, obviously we're just talking ifs and buts, but not having Miles Sanders and having Kenny.
No. Of course, I want Miles Sanders playing. I'm saying though, like I'm just saying I don't buy the idea that they were trying to ease his workload because no one else had their workload eased yesterday. Why would they be trying to ease Miles Sanders' workload?
Well, the Eagles had a good problem to have these last 2 and even 3 weeks where they had to kind of plan for the playoffs, despite the fact that the regular season was not over yet. And I think to Adam's point, it's like they kind of put him in bubble wrap knowing, hey, we don't need 20 carries out of Miles Sanders these last couple of weeks. We know we're going to the playoffs. We want to ensure his health for the postseason at a time where all of a sudden we have injuries popping up all over the field, at a time where we have question marks surrounding our best offensive lineman in Lane Johnson.
Well, that's a great point, Al. Which is what I was going to say next. You still can see Lane's value when he's not on the field. Even yesterday with Hurts back, you could still see how important Lane Johnson is to this team. And I think that the game plan on purpose was vanilla yesterday. I don't like. Some people were like, well, they couldn't even move the ball against second string. Like, I don't think they cared to do big flashy plays yesterday. I think that they were going to take whatever the Giants gave them, and they weren't going to go crazy with first. They definitely weren't going to do a lot of RPOs and things like that and QB options where Hurts going to be running the ball. They definitely weren't going to be doing that, which is probably half the playbook for this team. And so what we saw yesterday was a shell of a team's playbook, which is fine. I'm fine with not showing that because the Giants are going to play a pivotal role in this whole situation, this whole road, and more on that coming up later on in the show. But I just feel like I don't want to say enthused, but I was not discouraged yesterday by that performance. I went into that game thinking, as long as we win this game, I don't care if it's by 50 or by a point, get the win, advance, get the bye, get out of there. And let's have off the next week, get ready for the opponent in the divisional round, go from there. Then we can turn it on. At that point, we're going to have Lane back. We're going to have Hurts 2 more weeks removed from his injury. We're going to have other guys that are going to be more rested up from their injuries and their wear and tear that they've had recently as well. Gardner Johnson will be in better shape by that point. All kind of things will be clicking a little bit better, I think, by that point. And we saw in 2017 when this team, we thought going into that playoffs season, the Eagles were in a similar situation where people were nervous and they won the whole thing.
Not really though. We were nervous for a whole different reason then.
Well, still though, that's
a completely different reason to be nervous though when your starting quarterback gets put on the sideline for the playoffs.
You talking about Wentz? You talking about?
Yeah.
So, but are there not people now worried about Hurts' shoulder still? Even though he's still
that's different than Wentz
on the field.
Wentz was an MVP candidate and was out.
Right, but we've also had other.
This is a different set of nerves. This kind of plays into like my answer to Adam's question is I'm more concerned. I'm more discouraged than encouraged, and not so much because of what we saw on the field this past Sunday against the Giants. To me, it's more of just a microcosm of everything we've seen. This team has no momentum heading into the playoffs whatsoever. They have backpedaled in because of these untimely injuries, because of everything that's going on around them. I've talked about this before. I talked about this at about the midseason point. And Chris, I know you're going to disagree with me again now, just like you did then. But I don't think this team has had to play a big game against a big opponent this season. I don't think they've had to do it. And now they're going to have to turn it on in the playoffs at a time where they haven't been at full strength now in about a month. And come, the divisional round, it'll have been over a month from the time that they've had a Jalen Hurts, an Avonte Maddox, a Lane Johnson, all these guys, a CJ, all these guys on the field at the same time. The biggest game this season for them was the Cowboys game on Christmas Eve, and they didn't have Jalen Hurts. So the point I'm trying to make is that this team at full strength hasn't been tested yet. And now the first time we're going to see them tested is at a time where it's been over a month that they've played together.
And to add to that point, the Dallas game lost a lot of luster when Dallas lost the week before to Jacksonville.
That too. You're right.
So what was lining up to be a monster game just ended up being just a kind of a regular game. It was a little more important because it was Dallas. But outside of that, with the Hurts injury and a 2-game advantage in the standings, it did not mean nearly as much as everybody thought it would going into it.
I just think worrying is worrying, though. Like, whether it's about the quarterback, the O tackle, the defense, whatever, if you go into a playoff season with worries and concerns, it's still worries and concerns. Like, I get what you're saying, how like the quarterback's the most important position, and I understand that and I agree with that. But there's still people out there who are afraid, based on yesterday, that Hurts is not 100%. And they're afraid of if he is going to be 100% by that playoff game. And they're afraid if Lane Johnson is going to be 100% by that playoff game. And Avonte Maddox, if he can even play in the playoffs. These kind of things. And I'm not saying that they're not viable concerns. But I also think that we're downplaying the veteran leadership on this team. The veteran leadership on this team is championship caliber veteran leadership. Jason Kelce, Lane Johnson, Brandon Graham. All right. These guys have won with this team, and they've been in that same situation 5 years ago. And don't think for a second that that's not being talked about in the locker room with these guys, especially with the younger kids. Like, they're prepping them, I'm sure, for what's about to happen. As far as even if it's just like you're going to hear a lot of BS out here on even within Philly media, because I've heard it already today and yesterday. Similar to what you were saying, Al, with the concerns, and this team doesn't have a shot and all this stuff. And I just think it's not fair. And I think it's disrespectful. I don't think that this team, with Jalen Hurts as their quarterback, has lost one time since last season. What makes you think that all of a sudden they're going to just forget how to play football?
It's not that they're. I mean, obviously that's exaggerating it, right? That's exaggerating the point. But would you agree, Chris, that this is today, as it stands on Monday, January 9th, when we're recording the show, is this Philadelphia Eagles team the same? Do they have the same feel, the same juggernaut feel as they did 5 weeks ago when we talked about
5 weeks ago? They had a healthy Jalen Hurts and a healthy Lane Johnson.
Right.
So, but they're going to have that by the time we play in the game.
Timing is everything. Timing is everything, Chris.
Well, no, Lane won't be. No, Lane, but he'll be healthy enough. If he's out there, he's healthy enough.
Listen, Lane not being 100% is a huge loss. I mean, look, you've said it. We all can see it. Jack Driscoll is outmatched. We're having to double team every time. And if we walk into the playoffs having to potentially rely on a Jack Driscoll at right tackle, he's going to be going up against Micah Parsons, potentially Daniil Hunter, Zadarius Smith if we play the Vikings. Potentially, if Seattle makes it, they got a couple of nasty DNs. I mean, look, we're going to need to help him as much as possible if Lane is not healthy, and that's big.
Here's the other thing, though. Here's the thing you're not talking about, and we're going to talk more about this in segment 2. Every team in the playoffs has concerns.
That's what I was.
San Francisco has a third-string quarterback. The Giants have Daniel Jones. They have major question marks there. Can he handle a playoff game? Tampa Bay is at question marks all year. Dallas, Dak is throwing interceptions all over the field. Everybody's got problems. It's just a matter of who's going to get hot at the right time. And I understand what you're saying, Al. Like the Eagles feel like they peaked too early. That's what it feels like right now. But we'll see.
The Eagles went 13-1, and then Jalen Hurts got injured, and they are now 1-2. And this 1-2 team that has a negative 10-point differential in those 3 games is a different team than the team that went 13-1.
And to be fair, like they didn't play well in the game Hurts got injured in with Chicago. They didn't play well in that game either.
Well, that was, I mean,
it was cold and it was. I get it. So let me ask you this. I want to ask you guys a second question. What constitutes a successful season at this point? Where will you not the day after it happens, but 2 months from now be like, that was a good season? What has to happen from here on out?
I've told you before, Seltzer, with the Phillies, and I think the same way in the Sixers even previously, and I think the same with the Eagles now. Your expectations, we're all about, like, especially when you're talking about coaching and leadership. We talk about how you have to be willing and able to adapt, and your expectations have to adapt. So coming into the season, if you told me the Eagles would be in the divisional round of the playoffs, that's a plus. It's further than what they got last year. But that's not the case anymore. The season is now dictated that this team is a Super Bowl caliber, maybe even championship caliber team. That has to now be the expectation. Yep. So if they have gone through, like Al just said, they were a juggernaut for 14 weeks. If they go through that period of time in an NFL season and basically ran the gauntlet as the number 1 team in the league for 95% of the season and don't at least make the Super Bowl, that's a disappointment.
I disagree. I think that the NFC title game at this point would be a successful season. But that also hinges on, they make it to the NFC title game. They lose to a San Francisco who is just on an absolute tear. I mean, that team, Adam said that every team has worries. I think they have the least amount of worries in the NFC. Brock Purdy has proven that he can win football games, man. The kid, that's all he's doing is winning games. He's 5-0. But I know we're going to talk about that later. I think the NFC title game, if they get to that game, obviously they lose in a close game, and it's a situation where Jalen Hurts enters that game and he's, reports are out. He's hurt. He's playing at a 50, 60, 70% level. Lane Johnson, hurt. Josh Sweat, hurt. Avonte Maddox, hurt. You have guys on the field, not on the field that usually they're used to them being on the field. I can't sit here and say that I would be truly, like, disappointed. Like, yeah, it's disappointing. You want the team to win the Super Bowl. But given the circumstances, as Chris said, expectations change. So given the circumstances, I think an NFC title game would constitute a successful season.
And the other thing to add to that, not only, I mean, again, you guys are bigger Eagles fans than me. So the fact of the matter is the biggest question going into the season was is Jalen Hurts a franchise quarterback? And you have that answer,
right?
Regardless of what happens in the playoffs, you know that that's the guy you want to build around. But I will say this to you guys, because I was thinking about this morning. There were many times on this podcast where both of you guys would preach that Hurts is he's so smart with the way he runs and he's built a certain way that he's not built to get injured, and something along those lines. You made that as points. This is the second year Jalen Hurts has made the playoffs, and the second year he's playing injured in a playoff game.
I mean, he can't help that a 300-pound lineman just literally.
But that's what comes with it being a mobile quarterback.
Yes, to be fair to myself, I never made those statements about him being built a certain way and being able to take hits. I said he was a smart runner and he got down when he should, and he was always kind of keeping his head on the swivel. But this is also why I think that the non-mobile quarterback always will have a place in the NFL.
Well, let's hold off on that, because has it officially hurt the Eagles yet?
No, but he is not going to be playing 100% going into the playoffs. He's not going to be 100%. You agree with that?
It's a moot point. And now, if they go out and they lose the second round of the playoffs and he looks like crap and the whole thing, and he's still injured, and it's clear he's still injured, I can understand and listen to that line of thinking. I'm not ready to say that yet. It hasn't hurt the team yet. They won the division. They got the number 1 seed. They got the bye. They're still fine in regards to that. So I can't say that yet.
That's fair. And I want to we're going to go into the Phillies here for our Philly segment, but before we do that, and then we're going to obviously have Eagles talk next week as we'll know who they're playing and we'll be able to dive into this more. There's 4 potential teams that the Eagles could play in the second round of the playoffs. It could either be Dallas, Tampa Bay, the Giants, or the Seahawks, depending on how it plays out. I want you to rank those teams. I guess we could talk about who you'd like to see the most. That can constitute, the easiest matchup, but I'm going to leave it to you to determine who you'd like to, if you'd rather play somebody because it means something more to you. Give me the teams you'd like to play most from easiest to hardest out of those 4 teams. From most to least, what would you like to see?
Al, you want to go first?
Yeah. The easiest game is Seattle. Seattle's limping into the playoffs also. Geno Smith is not the same Geno Smith we saw earlier on in the season. So that's the team I'd like to see the most, followed by the Giants. I think the Giants are still just overrated, overhyped garbage that just took advantage of a soft schedule this season. And then Tampa, and then Dallas. I think it's clear that Dallas is the most dangerous team of these 4 that we could potentially face in the division.
How dangerous were they yesterday?
Yeah.
Listen, I understand that, but they're still top to bottom a better football team than Tampa Bay, in my opinion, at least.
Chris,
I mean, they still get after the quarterback. They still have a decent pass defense. They still have a pretty good offense. Tampa Bay look, maybe I'm underrating Brady. Maybe I'm underrating my man, the Hog himself, Vita V. But I just don't see Tampa Bay really doing much damage in the play.
I think the Eagles match up well with Tampa Bay because of Brady's limited mobility in the pocket. And if they can get that front 4 after him, it could be a long day for Tampa.
Yeah.
So I didn't even rank Seattle because I don't think that they have a chance in hell to get through this first game. But Giants, I would say 1. You said as far as like the who you want to see the most first.
Yeah.
So I'd say the Giants 1. And then it's gonna be a shocker, but it's on brand for me this year. 49ers is 2.
No, but you can't. I'm talking about in the second round. You can't play them in the second round.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying the playoffs in general. So the Giants
the
1. That kind of spoiled my big.
So it's Giants, Seahawks. You said Seahawks. You're not counting.
Yeah, I'm not even. I mean, if you, for the sake of the argument of this segment, Seattle be 1.
All right,
Giants
Seattle, Giants, Tampa Bay, Dallas.
I would say Dallas 3. Tampa
I was just listening. Okay, so you're going Seahawks, Giants, Cowboys, Buccaneers.
Yeah, because Brady turns into Megatron, Optimus Prime, Thanos, all those guys in the playoffs. It's a whole different level. It's like Super Shredder and Ninja Turtles. So I know what you're saying, Seltzer, and normally I would agree with that, but Brady still concerns me. I wouldn't say I'm fearful of him, but he's at least concerning.
That's fair. And he's probably more concerning if Tampa Bay goes out and shreds Dallas 31-10. Then we'll have a larger problem on our hands. I'll probably agree with Al, but again, it's probably close between Tampa Bay and Dallas. I just think, again, like I said, Brady's lack of mobility kind of plays into the Eagles' strength. So I'd go Seattle, Giants, Buccaneers, Cowboys as my 4.
I'm licking my chops to play. I would love to play Dallas, actually. And that goes to my whole thought process of like, I'm not afraid of any of these teams. Like I said, Brady is concerning, but I'm not afraid even of Dallas. I'm not afraid of in the championship. I'm not afraid of San Francisco. I'm not afraid of Minnesota. I'm not afraid of these teams. I have belief and faith in the Eagles this year. Call me a homer. I don't care. From preseason, I said I saw 14 wins on this team on that schedule. They got there. I love this team this year. I just think that, like you said a minute ago, Seltzer, all these teams have issues. And I'll take my chances with what we have right now than what some of these other teams have. And as simple as that. Dallas looks like absolute hot garbage. They're a whole different team outside of that, outside their stadium. When you put them on grass and in the cold and everything else, they're a whole different team.
As we said before, there's it would be a disappointment if Philly lost in the divisional round. None of these 4 teams should scare anyone at all. They should beat every one of these 4 teams.
Agreed.
I wonder what the line will be. The line, depending on who we play. Like, I wonder just how much Vegas is gonna. I mean, I would imagine against Dallas again, and this is assuming that Hurts is play. Obviously, Hurts is playing, but Lane's available. I would imagine we're given at least 6.
Ooh, I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think so.
No,
this is the same Vegas. This is the same national media in Vegas that always has been, right? Like, they don't ever respect the Eagles or Philadelphia teams.
You got to also.
I bet you that game out would be a pick'em.
No way. No.
I bet you that
it's probably gonna be like 4.5.
Yeah, I was
4.5 or so.
I was going to say 4, but it would depend how Dallas looks this weekend.
If Dallas goes out and wins 35-13 in Tampa,
then it'll be 3.
I bet. Okay.
The Eagles will absolutely be favored.
I would not be shocked if it was under 3.
Minimum a field goal. But we're going to talk next week, and we'd love to get a guest on, depending on who we're playing. So maybe we'll dig deep and see if we can find
a guest on every week.
A
second guest.
Find a Seahawks.
Sarah coming on here.
But anything else before we wrap on the Eagles and move to the Phils?
Go Birds, man. Don't listen. If you're scared,
it's a bye week. You don't have to say go Birds. It's a bye week.
If you're scared, folks, get a dog. I'm telling you. I say it every week. Don't be afraid. It's fine.
And the other thing is, if you're an Eagles fan, dude, celebrate, man. They're 4-3. They won the NFC East. They're the number 1 seed in the NFC. Don't be afraid to enjoy the moment, man.
It was an unbelievable regular season.
Yeah, 100%. Like, if don't be afraid, please.
So let's move on to the Philadelphia Phillies, who continue to be active. We obviously talked Trea Turner, which was the big fish in the pond, but they continue to make little supplemental moves along the way. And this weekend, they made a trade to move. What'd you say?
This wasn't a little subtle move.
All right, well, we'll debate. They acquired Gregory Soto from the Detroit Tigers for Danny Sands and 2 members of the did you guys watch the video documentary? I believe they called it The Daycare.
Yeah. Isn't it Donnie Sands?
Donnie Sands, correct. Yeah. Maybe. Matt Vierling and Nick Maton, who, I mean, Vierling started a handful of playoff games, so he was definitely a contributor. Maton didn't see as much postseason action, but definitely showed flashes during the regular season. They've definitely gone and upgraded the bullpen with Soto. They also added Craig Kimbrell a few weeks ago. So there's definitely been some motivation to I don't want to say fix that bullpen, but bolster the bullpen for sure, as they've lost a couple of guys. Chris, you seem more bullish on this trade than I am. So why don't you give us a little bit about why you're so excited about Gregory Soto?
Not that I'm excited, but I think it's a bigger move than you are leading on to than you're leading it on for. I think that, first of all, he's a 2-time All-Star. Now, you could talk about, well, big deal, it's Detroit, they have to have somebody. But do you think his agent cares about that logic? Like, that's not going to affect anything else other, like, he's still going to be getting the money that he thinks he's entitled to because of those All-Star appearances. And the value that he has is still going to be because of those All-Star appearances. So you're getting a 2-time All-Star for 2 bench players and a prospect that you would have never seen on this team, because I believe Sands was a catching prospect, was he not?
He was, correct.
So he would never be on the team. Soto's ERA, I believe last year was what, like around 3.3?
3.28.
3.28. He's had 48 saves over the past 2 seasons. And even if it doesn't work out, we didn't give anything up. We gave up Nick Maton and Matt Vierling. Like,
right, exactly.
What are we talking about? Like, seriously, So ever since this move happened, and I tried to gauge what the city vibe was, and there's too many people for my liking that are not liking this trade because of giving up Matt Vierling and Nick Maton.
That's crazy.
2 guys who I don't even know if they got in at bat during the World Series. I know Maton didn't.
Well, Vierling started a couple games, but
in the World Series,
yeah, he started against Valdez. He played against the lefty.
That's right, he did. That's right. And did he do anything in those games?
Probably not.
No. So we're talking about a guy who was a fringe. He's a fringe player on a major league team. Nick Maton, who's a nice player. Don't get me wrong. I like Nick Maton.
I think Maton's better than Vierling.
Maton is very versatile. He can play any position in the infield. He can play right field for you. He played right field, I think, a couple times for us in the regular season. He's a nice player. But bro, you got a chance to get another big arm in this bullpen for Nick Maton and Matt Veer. These are the same people that thought that Wentz was better than Hurts. The same people who thought that we shouldn't get Harden because we were giving up Seth Curry and Andre Drummond. It's the same people that are saying, whoa, we're giving up Matt Vierling in the daycare with Nick Maton. Those guys were cool. Then guess what? You go watch the Tigers and watch Maton and Vierling develop on a team that's not going anywhere, because I'm trying to win a championship.
This city's fans have a problem with growing attached to losers and not wanting to let them go.
It's unbelievable. It's literally, as much as I love being a Philadelphian and I love my city and I love the people in the city, I always have this logic that I'll be brutally honest, 85% of people are idiots. And they always will show you that they're idiots because of stupid stuff like this. There's no reason why any other market would have a problem with this trade except for us. We're finding a way to be upset about getting a two-time All-Star in our bullpen to go along with Kimbrel, Dominguez, Alvarado. You have four guys that can close. Four guys that could close. Will they? Of course not. They all can't close at the same time. But like four guys who are capable of closing a game out in your bullpen. And you're going to complain because you're getting rid of two bench players and a guy you're never going to see.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
So here's where I agree with 75% of the stuff you're saying. I don't think
that's a big fall from 90 to 75%.
Yeah. Well, here's what I'm going to tell you. I have no problem with what the Phillies gave up at all. That's where I 100%.
Nobody should have a problem with that.
Matt Vierling is a nice supplemental player. We saw, when Marsh went down in August and he had to play every day, he got exposed for what he is. He's a fourth outfielder, and he does a nice job in center field, and that's fine, but he's replaceable. Nick Maton, I think, could be an everyday player, but he had no pathway to play here with Trea Turner and Stott, and then Edmundo Sosa can play everywhere in the infield. So there was no place to put him. My issue is I don't, and I hope I'm wrong, I don't know if Gregory Soto is any good. And I say that because the first thing I did, or I tend to do when I make a trade, is I'll go onto Tigers Twitter and I'll see what those guys are saying. And they couldn't be happier to get rid of this guy. And a lot of them were talking about how he would choke under pressure, how he couldn't throw strikes. He obviously, his stuff is 98 to 100 with movement, but he only struck out one batter per inning. So he was 60 Ks in 60 innings, which is not elite strikeout stuff. They talked about in pressure situations, he would seem like he would gag and not be able to handle the situation. And if he's doing that in Detroit when games don't matter, I don't know what he'll be like when he pitches here.
But it could be the opposite effect, though, Seltzer. It could be that he wasn't up for those games because they didn't matter.
Maybe, but that's what we're going to have to see. And I look at him as almost like, from what I read, reminds me very much of Jose Alvarado before he turned the corner last year. And maybe the Phillies coaching staff can, they figured, hey, we found something with Jose. Maybe we can turn Soto into that. But my concern is that I just don't know how good this guy is. Again, I have no problem with what the Phillies gave up by any means. I just don't know. And last thing I want out of my relievers, and we talked about this in the playoffs last year with Robertson, it's like I don't need my pitchers walking guys all over that's the last thing we need. We need strike throwers.
Yeah, Adam, you took the words out of my mouth. The kid is a flamethrower that doesn't strike people out. So I don't necessarily know what he's doing to get guys out at the plate if he's throwing 100 miles an hour, but he has no out pitch. I mean, looking at his pitch types, looking at his pitches on Baseball Savant, it looks like his slider is well below average as far as movement and break. So if that's his out pitch, but it's not moving, and he's not striking guys out with it seems like he throws three pitches, four seam, sinker, slider, and he's not striking guys out with any of them. I don't really know what he is. I got to see more, I guess, more of him. I didn't really look up any highlights or anything like that. I didn't do any deep diving. But what I do like is I like the fact that we're bringing in another live arm. It's not a guy like it's not a guy that we have to. He doesn't have to close. He doesn't have to be the seventh
No,
man.
not at all.
You know what I mean? So we can kind of ease him into a role in the bullpen slowly. And I think that it's nice that we have guys like Alvarado and Dominguez to kind of give him that mentorship as far as bringing him along, playing in Philly, kind of harnessing that ability to throw 100 miles an hour, but then to also know, you know what I mean, when to throw the out pitch, how to develop that out pitch.
Yeah, and I was going to say, too, I'm glad you said about the mentoring thing. This guy isn't 32, 33, 34 years old. He's 27.
Yep.
And he's only been in the league 4 years. So there might be something that the pitching staff sees that they can help him with, that they helped Alvarado with, like you said, Seltzer. But again, if this guy comes in and he's hot garbage, he's yours familiar. We gave up nothing. We gave up 2 guys that are easily replaceable. We didn't trade a guy that's a cornerstone of our organization, or anything like that,
Right.
by any means.
I think we're all
it's a win-win
okay
for the
with
Phillies.
what
I
was
mean, the
shipped
guy.
out. I don't think anybody has a problem with that.
Well, and
Now-
also still, you're not having. He's not going to be he could be he could be a 6th, 7th inning. Like, he may not even be a guy that we're going to go to a lot. Like, he might be the 4th out of those 4 guys.
Right, and maybe he is. And I'm just saying. I guess my point is not that I'm upset with the trade. I'm not as excited. Like, I see Mike Missinelli tweeting yesterday. We give up 2 bench players for a stud. Like, I'm not ready to jump on the fact that I think this guy is a stud at this point. And I don't think Mike Missinelli has seen this guy throw a pitch, other than the fact that he thinks he throws 100 miles an hour.
Each year, his ERA is going down in his 4 years.
But his whip is
And-
not good. His whip's 1.35. That's horrible. And it's consistently around that.
Yeah. So, but I think that there's meat on the bone with this kid. Hopefully we're right. He strikes out. I think it's 9 on the dot. 9 guys per 9 innings. 7 hits per 9.
It's not
5
elite
walks
for a
per
reliever.
9.
No, and that's not good for like we said, a guy throwing
Yeah.
100 miles an hour. That's low.
I'm more intrigued with the Kimbrel signing, honestly. I looked at Kimbrel's numbers the other day. The first half of 2021, Kimbrel was elite. He was 0.5 ERA in 36 innings with 64 strikeouts.
Yeah.
Gets traded to Chicago, and he's not very good. Last year in LA, he struggled, but like if you look at Craig Kimball's numbers from last year, they're right in line with Gregory Soto's numbers. They're almost exactly the same last year, and people were like, Kimbrel's shot. But his numbers are like almost on par exactly with what Soto did last year.
The biggest difference is Kimbrel's a crafty veteran. You know what I mean? Where Soto, he doesn't have that experience. He doesn't
Kimbrel's
have the big
pitched big games.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I was gonna say. Soto doesn't have that big game experience. He doesn't know how to get a guy out probably without just trying to overpower them with his heat. Kimbrel does. Kimbrel knows what he's doing out there, and with 2 pitches.
Well, let me ask you this: who do you think who is the closer on the Phillies?
Who do I think it's going to be, or who would I like it to be?
Well, we don't know who it's going to be. So who would you like it to be?
Sir Anthony.
I think it's gonna be Sir Anthony.
I would say I'm torn between him and Kimbrel, because, like you said, I think he's got the experience, the clout, the pedigree. I would be intrigued to start the season with Kimbrel as.
I think Kimbrel ideal role for him is a closer, and I think Sir Anthony has more versatility. But to me, like, I'm traditional, and like, to me, Sir Anthony is can be your closer for the next 8 to 10 years. So like, why are we tinkering around? Like, put him in the role and let him do his
We've thought that
job.
before, and there's something that, for whatever reason, he's like the Paul Reed, I guess, of the Phillies. Like, there's something about him that they don't want to hitch their wagon to him full time as the closer.
I don't get it.
I don't think that there was a chance in hell that they were going to get Craig Kimbrel and him not be the closer. Like, I think that, like, that had to have been part of the negotiations. Like, if I'm not closing, I'm not interested. I don't think he's ever been anywhere where he wasn't the closer.
I posed this question on Twitter, and I'll ask it to you guys. Do you think that we're going to go into this season and Philly Rob is going to have more of a traditional mindset when it comes to the bullpen, where he's going to have a guy who is his closer He's going to have a guy who is his setup man, or is it going to be more of what we saw in the postseason where it was kind of going by feel?
I think
go ahead, Seltzer.
I think he'll have more of a line. I think in the regular season, he really kind of had a set formula of what he wanted. The playoff baseball is a different beast. And I think when you get into it, it's more matchups. It's who's throwing the ball well at the time. And I think he kind of fell in love with that. But I mean, you'll see matchups from here or there. But I think for the most part, I actually agree with Chris. I think, Chris posed the question of who would you want to see. I actually think they will start the season with Kimbrel as the closer. And then I see, Sir Anthony in the 8th. And I see Alvarado is the 7th, and then I think they're mixing and matching from that point on with what they want to do.
I think that you'll see that, Al, where Kimbrel starts the closer, but the setup guy is the role where we're not sure of.
Right.
Yeah.
That could fluctuate game to game. Also, another thing, too, is a big reason I'm sure why they got Soto is because as great as Alvarado was last year, it was no secret he was shot at the end. Yeah. Not only was he shot, but we pitched him every game.
Yep.
The Astros knew they had seen him so many times by that point that it was just bound to blow up because they're major league hitters. You know what I'm saying? After a while, what is it? The third time around the order, average pitchers ERA goes up significantly. Mm-hmm. So in that regard, still as a bullpen pitcher, Alvarado's appearances 2, 3, 4, 5 times in a row, these guys were probably licking their chops by the end of that part. Right. So now it's Soto. That gives a little bit of pressure off of Alvarado to be that lefty specialist in those big moments. And I think if Soto's not used heavily, I think his numbers can improve. And I think that Alvarado's also will improve because of the fact that he won't be burned out at the end of the year.
Well, I don't want to get ahead of myself. And obviously we still need to see how these guys perform on the field. But just looking at this best case scenario, you know what I mean? These guys aren't a complete disaster. What a night and day difference we have going into this season versus last, looking at that bullpen. Yep. I mean, Dombrowski really should be applauded for the job he did this offseason with the bullpen.
We didn't even touch on, and I wonder if, again, money is money, and I don't really care at this point because money's going to spend all over the place. I wonder if they would have spent $15 million on Matt Strahm if they knew they were getting Gregory Soto, because that's another guy that we haven't really touched on, a lefty that they picked up from Boston.
And he's okay.
Yeah, no, I think he did, but I don't know if they would have spent $7.5 million on him per year if they knew they were getting Gregory Soto.
So yeah, we're having three lefties now in the bullpen.
3 lefties, and we haven't even touched. You'll have Brogdon and Bilotti too. Their bullpen is poised to be very, very good.
I think this bullpen has top 3 potential in baseball.
It does, but it also has implosion. There's a path where they have the most best bullpen in baseball. They could very well be there. There's also a road where Kimbrel is shot, Soto's not what he is, and Alvarado regresses to what he was before. That's also in the realm of possibilities.
What do you think if I told you Soto's going to go give you a 3.6 ERA, strikeouts around the same, 60? So I'm looking at what I'm saying is I'm looking at the projections that Baseball Reference has for Soto for 2023, and they have him 3-6 with a 3.63 ERA, 15 saves, 63 strikeouts and 62 innings pitched, and a 1.29 whip. Would you sign up for that?
Let me ask you this. What if I could give you a 2.8 ERA, a 1.33 whip with a couple of saves, and how many innings do they have him throwing?
62.
Okay, and 45 innings. Would you take that?
Sure.
Because that's what Brad Hand gave you last year.
Yeah, but Brad Hand had the most BS bogus numbers of all. What is his inherited ERA?
I mean, I'm not thinking that deep. Listen,
I guarantee you his inherited runner's ERA is probably through the roof.
All I'm saying is that the numbers you gave me, I think I can get from a Connor Brogdon or a Bilotti. Those are the kind of numbers that those guys put up. That's not elite relievers.
Wait. A quick Google search of Brad Hand inherited runners. The first result is it's only from May 18th. And just the snippet on Google says Brad Hand has allowed 6 of 14 inherited runners to score this season. His ERA is 1.80, but that's a bit misleading.
It's a disgrace. it's a total like it's totally night and day from what he really the value that he gave you in that job last year.
He wasn't good. Like Soto's better than Brad Hand.
And again, it's low risk, high reward. This guy could be a stud, like Missinelli said, or he could be a juris familia. But we gave up 2 bench guys.
Yeah, but they do have to.
All-star. Let's be honest. Like whether you could argue about like the validity of the all-star appearances, whatever. But the fact of the matter is, on his resume, that's what it says.
I hear you, but that's fine. Like you said, the Detroit Tigers had to have an all-star, so he got in. Yeah. They do have to. Like we can bash Matt Vierling all we want, but they do need to find guys to replace him. They only have 3 outfielders on the roster right now, with Castellanos and Schwarber and Marsh. So they're going to have to find.
And they will.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. Like I don't have any doubt about that. But they're going to have to find, especially a right-handed guy who can play center field, and also be a defensive replacement for those guys in the corner.
Like, what are the odds of us saying in June, like, man, I miss Vierling, bro?
No shot.
We had Vierling in
no
this
shot. Like, I'm not worried.
You know what I mean?
All on the same page there. The only other thing, I wanted to touch on, and I think we'll be on the same page. Any thoughts on Taijuan Walker as the 4th starter and the contract they gave him? I think it was 4 years, $75 million.
I think 72.
72 million.
I liked it. I think that he is 4 years for 72 was what? 1, 2,
18.
So in today's climate in baseball, I don't know where he falls as far as in the percentage of like the highest paid, lowest paid, whatever the case, like is for for starting pitchers. But I don't think they broke the bank for him. Yeah. I think that he was.
He's better than your average number 4 starter. That's
right.
That's what he is, and that's why I'm okay with the move.
Totally fine with it.
And he's going to be your 4, which we didn't have last year at all. We didn't have a number 4. In the playoffs.
We didn't, but like
in the playoffs,
Yeah, I was going. Gibson was fine in the regular season. Like he was decent, but yeah, he fell off the map completely later in the year.
So I'm just looking real quick at Walker.
He was like 3.57, 160 innings pitched, 3.49 last year, career 3.89 ERA.
He's pretty durable too.
1.22 WHIP. He had some injury issues in like 17 and 18, I think, 18 and 19. But other than that, pretty consistently around 160 innings pitched. He's a decent pitcher. Like he'll be fine. And
his WHIP is pretty good actually. His WHIP is for his 10-year career is 1.2, 1.195 last year, 1.182 in 21. Like he's a pretty solid guy. He's a guy that we probably can trust in a playoff series if we had to throw him out there.
More so than Noah Syndergaard, that's for sure.
And again, his projections on here say 10-8, 3.8 ERA, 154 innings.
Sign me up.
1.208 WHIP, 8 strikeouts per 9, only 2.9 walks per 9. So I'll take it, and he's in his age 30 season, so he's in his prime. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I trust him more than Kyle Gibson, more than Bailey Falter. We obviously had to replace Zach Eflin. You're a 4th starter. You need him to win games at home and give you a chance on the road.
Yeah, there's not a lot more to say about him.
No, it's a ho-hum.
A lot more baseball talk to come in the coming months. Spring training is closer than you think. It's amazing how short the baseball offseason is when you go to the World Series.
Yeah, I think it's 5 weeks away. I think pitchers and catchers.
Yeah, so we're gonna definitely talk because the division is going to be phenomenal. So we're gonna. We're waiting to see what happens with Correa, but definitely want to talk NL East with you guys, especially once football season wraps up. So that's it for segment 1, the Philly sports update. Anything else you guys want to throw in there before we move it on?
No love for Yunier Marte.
I saw that today. I saw that another trade today. I think it's Junior, isn't it? Like Junior.
Yeah.
Also getting Cody Clemens. Speaking of another bat off the bench, I guess that's the new one off the bench. One of them.
The Detroit people were saying Cody Clemens is nothing. That's what they were.
No, no, he only bat 150 last year, but it's also he's like 12 years old. He's not. He's very young. He did have a big grand slam for them, which they must have quickly forgot about. But I don't know how many games the Tigers won last year. A handful. So it's not like they had a lot of big moments anyway. But I don't know if he'll even make the team or not, but let's be fair to Cody Clemens that he was in the deal. Welcome to Philadelphia, Cody.
And
And
for those of you guys not aware, that actually is Roger's son.
yes, it is. Yes.
But we'll be right back with segment 2. We're going to preview some of the wild card games this weekend and give you our picks as well. So we'll be right back. Welcome back to segment 2 of the 3K podcast, where we're going to dive into this weekend's NFL games. We're doing a little bit different for you guys than usual to try and save on some time. We've each taken 2 of the 6 games this weekend and done a little bit of a deeper dive. So we're going to pass the baton around a little bit, but we're all going to give our picks come the end of the day. So we're going to start with the first game of the weekend, the Saturday afternoon game. It's going to be the Seattle Seahawks at the San Francisco 49ers. And Al, you went into this one, so why don't you hit us with what you got?
All right, so this is my team, San Fran. They were my pick to win, my value pick to win the Super Bowl for the season started. Obviously, over the course of the season, we've seen a lot of changes. Start out the season with oh my God, his name has left my brain.
Trey Lance.
Trey Lance gets hurt, moves to Jimmy G, gets hurt, and now we're in the hands of Brock Purdy. Kid goes 5-0 out of Iowa State, rookie. We all know, but what's most impressive to me is he doesn't make mistakes, and which is what we said all along San Fran needs. They just need a game manager because of what they have around them. San Francisco heads into this game as the hottest team in the NFL. They've won 10 straight games. 4 of those games are against playoff teams this season: the Chargers, the Dolphins, the Buccaneers, and the Seahawks. They've already beaten Seattle twice this year, 27-7 and 21-13. In my opinion, Chris, you're going to hate this. I think that they're the best team in the NFC right now when you take everything into account. They're probably the team that I would trust.
With a third string quarterback.
Yes, with a third string quarterback. They're probably the team that I would trust the most right now. Setting everything aside, Chris, I know that they would have to go to Philadelphia potentially, but just if I'm looking at the rosters and the teams and the way they played and momentum being a thing, I think that they're the best team in the NFC right now. They're number 1 in opponent points and yards per game. They're 6th in points per game on offense and 5th in yards per game on offense. They've become a totally different offense with not only Brock Purdy, but Christian McCaffrey as well. They force turnovers. They hold on to the ball. They're 3rd in time of possession. Moving on to Seattle, they're not a good defensive team. This is not the Seattle that we're used to. They're decent against the pass. They have a pretty strong passing offense. They have the highest completion percentage in the league. However, that's not been the case the last 5 or so weeks, where we've seen a different Geno Smith than we saw at the beginning of the season. Geno's last 5 games, he's averaging about 222 yards a game, 8 touchdowns, 5 interceptions in that time, and just an 83.9 passer rating. And to compare that to Brock Purdy in those 5 games, 219.6 yards a game, 11 touchdowns, 2 picks, 119 passer rating in just 5 starts. And to go even further, Jimmy G only had a 103.2 passer rating in his 10 starts, and only 4 more touchdowns through the air. So look, if you just take the name out of it, like, I get it. He's a rookie, 7th round pick, was never meant to do anything. I know another guy that was a rookie, 7th round pick, never meant to do anything, and he goes on to become the GOAT of the NFL. Not comparing Brock Purdy on a career trajectory to Mr. Brady, but I'm just saying, I think it's a little bit short-sighted to doubt the kid based on what we've seen so far in the 5 games that he's started for the 49ers. Christian McCaffrey is averaging over 100 yards receiving and rushing combined. He has 10 touchdowns for this team. I think a little too much respect is being given to the Seahawks, probably because it's a division game. But San Fran's been steamrolling teams. They've covered 7 of their last 8. They're 6-0 against the spread this season against their division opponents. And Seattle's 1-7 against the spread in their last 8 games. You know where I'm going with this. I got Geno's magical run coming to an end, unfortunately, for Seattle. I have San Fran winning 36-13.
That's actually close to what I have. I have 33-14 San Francisco. But real quick, so San Francisco, they're beating, mowing people down, the whole thing. They've got 4 losses. But their 4 losses are the Bears, the Broncos, the Falcons. Yep. And the Chiefs blew their doors off in San Francisco, a team that's allegedly on their caliber.
Yep.
That was
I will continue to preach this whole season that this team is extremely overrated. And they're going to be even more overrated the deeper that this gets, as far as, they're going to win a playoff game. They're going to beat Seattle. And they might even win another game, because if they have to play, let's say, for instance, if they have to play Dallas next week, I think they can beat Dallas in San Francisco. I don't know if it was in Dallas they beat them or not, but in San Francisco, I think they would win. But when you come to South Philly, bro, that's the toughest game that either of those teams have had all year, and they're going to be doing it in the cold on the road in a championship game. I would trust the home team in that one.
Well, we're going to find out when it comes to that. I'm on the same page, literally almost the same score. I have 31-13 San Francisco. So we're all on San Francisco. They're 10-point favorites. Quick question, yes or no? Is Kyle Shanahan coach of the year?
No.
I say yes. Okay. Moving it on. The next game that night.
You're not going to ask us who our coaches of the year are then?
I know. I was
Thinking
the same thing.
I know you're going to say Sirianni. So
No, I'm not.
Who's your coach of the year? Dable?
Dan Campbell.
So Kyle Shanahan, who won a 10-game win streak with 3 different quarterbacks, and you're going to Dan Campbell, who didn't make the playoffs?
Dan Campbell was 1-6 at one point and led that team back to a 9-8 record, winning the game. The last
knocked
game
your boys out. That's what it is. He knocked out Chris's boys.
Last game of the year with a win, and that team played like they won the Super Bowl that game. So that's amazing. That's a great coaching job where you can get grown men to buy in to playing a game that doesn't mean anything for them anymore, to have that game matter to them that much in that circumstance, and they pull it off on the road is a huge deal to me. I think that not only do I think he's coach of the year, I think Detroit is going to be a contender for the NFC next year.
I mean, they definitely close hot. Al, who's your coach of the year?
Nick Sirianni.
Okay. All right, let's move it on before we get off track here. I'm going to take the next one, which is the Chargers at Jacksonville, and this game definitely has me intrigued. Jacksonville goes on this run. Al's smiling down at the bottom of the screen as they catch Tennessee, who just has a completely epic collapse down the stretch. 2 young quarterbacks, both with very interesting haircuts, by the way. I think we're going to see that. How often are they going to talk about that on Saturday night, about the hair of the 2 quarterbacks? But 2 young stud quarterbacks in Justin Herbert and Trevor Lawrence, both making their first playoff starts in Jacksonville. I do want to make the case. Let me ask this to you guys. Do you think that if a wildcard team has a better record than a division winner, that the wildcard team should get the home game?
I'll say yes, they should, because divisions are not all created equally.
Agreed. I think that I'm saying Jacksonville should still be the 4 seed. They play the 5 seed, but I think the Chargers should have home field.
Right.
Chris?
Yeah, I agree. I think it should be how we do fantasy football, to be honest with you. Like, number 1 seed, get the number 1 seed. Everybody else, division winner or not, it goes by your record.
Right.
So if it's a weird year and 2 divisions have, are bad, and there's 2 wild cards that have better records, and they should get those home spots.
Now, let's not act like the Chargers have any home field advantage whatsoever. So it really doesn't matter in this case. Right. But I had a note here. It actually, I found it interesting that all 6 games this weekend were already played during the regular season. So all these teams have actually played each other. These teams met up in week 3. The Jaguars buried the Chargers 38-10. Now, I will throw a little asterisk on that.
Where was that game at?
Remember? Huh?
Where was it?
I believe it was in LA. I don't have it noted down. But if you do remember, Herbert in week 2 broke his ribs, and they put him out there to play, and he was really banged up and did not play well. But it was still a complete ass whooping from the Jaguars, 38-10. The Chargers have the worst run defense in the NFL at 5.4 yards per carry. They're middle of the road against the pass. Jaguars not a great running team, but they have Travis Etienne, who can bust off a big run at any given moment. He's a big play guy. Jacksonville a little bit better. They're middle of the road defensively. They're better against the run than they are against the pass. The Chargers, are a better throwing the ball team. But to me, the difference in this game may be coaching. We're all familiar with Doug Peterson and what he's done here, winning the Super Bowl. But to me, we can go back to our Halloween segment.
You hate Staley.
I can't stand Brandon Staley. And
I don't like him either, but
he screwed up this weekend again.
Yeah, I agree. I don't like him either.
Brandon Staley team is locked into a 5 seed, and we can argue rest versus rust all we want. But when we argued it for the Eagles had another bye week coming up, which would made it even worse. The Chargers put players out there, injury-prone players out there, and they got hurt.
I was going to say,
got hurt.
Yeah,
Joey Bosa got hurt.
Mike Williams gets hurt when the wind blows. Every game he's hurt.
Those are 2 extremely important players for this team. And I just have no idea why they're putting those guys out there in this situation. And I don't trust Brandon Staley to win a playoff game. I just don't see it coming from them.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'll just say with the Mike Williams thing real quick, because I have him in one of my fantasy teams too. And he gets hurt literally every week. You go check all your lineup on Wednesday or Thursday, and he has that red thing next to it where it's like, not full practice or didn't practice or this and that, and it's a knee, it's an ankle, it's a foot, it's a
day to day.
But
how are there always guys like that? There's you know who they are too. Like there's always guys that just are they're always constantly hurt.
And it reminded me of when we were younger, if you remember Corey Simon on the Eagles. And I was at a game one time, and Corey Simon got hurt, and he got hurt a lot too. And and you hear some guy in the back, and he's like, "Oh, it's Simon's on the ground," and the guy behind me goes, "Who else would it be?" And that's how I think about Mike Williams. He's hurt all the time, and he's so good. It's sad that he gets hurt so much, but it's got to be so annoying for that team.
And he's a difference maker.
Yes,
and he's a difference maker at the wide receiver position. The Jaguars generally play close games. I was looking at their schedule. They had a handful of losses this year, but they've only lost 2 games by more than 1 possession. And those were the Chiefs beat them by 10, and the Detroit Lions absolutely whooped the crap out of them in week 14, which was kind of out of nowhere. They've won 6 out of 7 coming in. The Chargers also somewhat hot. They've won 5 out of 7 coming in. But to me, I think this is going to be a really, really close and interesting game. And I just trust the Jaguars a little bit more down the stretch. So I've got the Jaguars outright. And if I can find the score that I put on this screen here, I have 20-16 Jacksonville in a low-scoring game. The only other thing I'll bring up, and I don't know how much it'll make an impact, Chargers do have to fly across the country, which always plays a little bit of a role. Again, with a playoff game, I'm not sure it'll play as much as it does during regular season, and the fact that it's a night game shouldn't matter as much. But I just don't trust the Chargers coaching staff. I don't know if they're healthy with Williams and Bosa, and I'm going to ride the Jaguars in this spot.
What was your score again?
20-16 Jacksonville. Jacksonville is also a 1-point underdog going into this matchup,
which I think is weird. What has the Chargers done to be a favorite in a road play, going across the country in a playoff game?
They're still just a sexy name. Justin Herbert is a sexy name. That's all it boils down to.
I guess.
And the one thing I'll add though that scares me a little bit is I watched a little bit of the game Thursday night. I didn't think Lawrence looked good on Thursday night at all. I thought he was rushing throws. I thought he didn't show great touch. He's been great down the stretch, but I just didn't think he looked really good on Thursday night.
Once upon a time, there was a guy in this podcast that talked about how good Trevor Lawrence was and how he was better than Tua Tagovailoa, and I got heat for it. I'm sorry, he got heat for it.
I don't know who that man was.
I mean, there was also a guy who took them to win the South, and that literally said it's because they have Crusher Doug and Trevor Lawrence, 2 guys that all of a sudden were outcasts in the NFL. Like Doug forgot how to coach, and Trevor Lawrence forgot how to throw a football. Mm-hmm. But I'll keep it brief here. My pick is Jacksonville, also, Adam, for a lot of the reasons you said. I think that it's also just the Chargers choke, man. They choke every year. So I got the Jags winning also a pretty close game, 24-23. And I just wanted to throw this out there. In their last 6 games, Trevor Lawrence has a 98.4 QB rating, 9 touchdowns to 2 picks. Justin Herbert's a 94.2, 6 touchdowns to 3 picks. I don't know if I just thought that was interesting. I just feel like Justin Herbert is a stat machine but I feel like he's kind of also like kind of just limping into the playoffs here. In this last stretch of the season.
The reason I got excited when you said that score was because I actually had 24-22 Jacksonville. So we almost were like exactly on there. I actually think this could be the best game of the weekend, to be honest with you, as far as like competitive, the competitiveness of the game is concerned. I think this could be a close, fun game.
So to move it along in regards to the schedule, we're actually going to jump to Monday night. We'll throw it to Chris, who has Tampa Bay and Dallas. And if you've listened to the other episodes of Pod, I think you know where he's going with this one. But go ahead, Chris, break it down for the Buccaneers and the Cowboys.
So yeah, I just feel like the NFL is the best reality show. I say it all the time. Every game in this round has a storyline, and there's none bigger than the Bucks and the boys, right? One more ring for the road for Brady possibly this year. That'll be what, 8 if he can win the Super Bowl somehow this year. I think it'd be 8 rings. And will Dallas finally just get out of their own way? We know the mantra for the Cowboys seems to be whatever can go wrong will go wrong. And I think that is going to come into play here. I have 2 upsets, I think, this week, but this is one of them. And I wouldn't even call it an upset, but that's what they're going to tell you. Dallas is a completely different team. I mentioned it in the first segment. Completely different team on grass and outside of Jerry World than they are when they're on the road. They are very beatable, and they are very easy. Not I want to say easily stopped, but easily they're definitely containable, so to speak, when they play on the road a lot more than they are on that turf in Dallas. And I just think that people also aren't talking about the fact that week 1, Tampa beat up Dallas in Dallas. And I think if I remember correctly, that was the game that Dak got hurt. In that game, it's at some point in that game. So Tampa is, they finished the year as a division winner despite having a sub 500 record because the NFC South was complete trash. But like I said, Tom Brady is Optimus Prime. And I still believe, especially him playing at home, not having to play in the cold the first round and any other markets that are in the playoffs, is a huge positive for him and that team. Dallas they haven't really shown me that they can do anything on either side of the ball the last few weeks. They've looked gassed, especially on defense the last month. I mean, they gave up 40 to Jacksonville. They gave up 34 to the Eagles with Gardner Minshew at the quarterback in their stadium. And then they got beat by the Commanders yesterday, gave up 26 points to a third-string rookie. They look gassed. So now you're going to have them play. I don't know what the temperature is going to be in Tampa. I know it's like, obviously it's January for everybody, but it's going to be warmer than it's going to be in most places. So I don't know if that's going to play a factor or not, but it's still a road game nonetheless for the Cowboys. And I just feel like this is a bad spot for Dallas, especially coming off of that bad loss that they had in Landover, Maryland yesterday. So for me, I just think that Brady's about to eat, and a lot of people are about to lose their money betting with their hearts with those fraudulent Cowboy cockroaches. So 29-22 is my prediction for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to win this game against the Dallas Cowboys this week. I believe the line is Dallas minus
2.5.
3?
2.5.
2.5.
Yeah, it's down to 2.5 now.
I think that's kind of I don't see that a little bit. In fact, I'll be more likely than not, I'll be running to make a bet before that game starts for Tampa.
Al?
When it comes to gambling, I don't bet on NFL really ever, to be honest, but I like reading the lines. And to me, Dallas being favored in this game, I think they opened at -3 and they've now been bet down to 2.5. That said a lot about Vegas's confidence in Dallas winning the game outright. With that said, I can't bet against the GOAT. I can't do it.
Dude,
Yes. Look, Tom Brady somehow this season set a personal record for career completions and attempts in a season. What the hell is going on, dude? When's this dude gonna get like too old to be?
And he's I think he's got a midlife crisis going on right now, and he's like he might play 5 more years.
Dude, you want to know all the midlife crisis you need to know is just go to Pro Football Reference and look at the picture. Look at his picture.
I've seen it.
That man's going through stuff.
Yeah.
But listen, I agree with what Chris said. I think that betting against Brady has lost a lot of people a lot of money, and I'm not about to do it. I have Tampa Bay winning outright 24-20, and that's despite Tampa has been an absolutely dreadful team against the spread this season. I don't know if you guys saw the numbers, but they only covered 4 games this season.
Yeah, I mean, and like I said, Brady's like he's like a video game boss. Like you got to play a perfect game to knock him out and move on. And especially in a first round game. When was the last time Brady lost in a first round? I mean, I probably should look that up, but
I don't know. I mean, my only concern though is other than the Dallas win at the beginning of the season, they have not beaten anybody. Tampa Bay.
No, I just think that they're on the back of their quarterback at this point. Now, if they had anybody else playing, I think that it'd be a different story. But like you said, Brady, I'm not going against him in the first round. Definitely not in the first round.
Yeah.
So there was the game on Christmas night when they played Arizona, and I watched that team, and I said, "There's no way this team is winning a playoff game." I'm talking about Tampa Bay.
Mm-hmm.
They were down 16-3, I think, and they came back and they won it in overtime, 19-16. And then they went down the next week. It was a game against the Panthers, essentially for the division.
Same thing. Yep.
And they go down 14-0, and they just looked dead. And all of a sudden, they kind of awoke, and they found Mike Evans, who finally reappeared from, what seemed to be, football. I don't know where he was all season. Goes for 200 yards and 3 touchdowns, and the offense just comes alive. They played okay on Sunday. They only played about half the game, even though they took the loss to Atlanta. I thought they looked okay. Dak Prescott's just making too many mistakes. He's making too many mistakes. So we're going to go 3 for 3, boys.
Oh, boy.
I'm on Tampa outright 24-16 on Monday night.
And Seltzer, he led them late against New Orleans and I believe Seattle too. A couple weeks before that. Like it's literally like, all right, what's the score? 4th quarter. What's the score, y'all? All right, hold up. Let me get myself together. And he just leaves them back.
I know.
It's like he's not dead until you cut the head. Like you can't kill the snake till you cut its head off. And you got to literally, like I said, play a perfect game. Ask Nick Foles. You got to play a perfect game against Tom Brady to beat Tom Brady in the playoffs.
All right, so let's go to the Sunday slate, as we have 3 games on Sunday. Al, we'll throw it to you first for Buffalo and Miami.
This game it's lost a lot of its luster just because we don't know who's starting at quarterback for Miami. And so I'm going to
interrupt you. If Miami throws Tua out on the playing field, that's so fucking irresponsible. Excuse my language. He had 3 concussions in 2 months. Like,
and
they've already shown that they're irresponsible.
I know.
But even though the 2 injuries are completely unrelated, obviously, but I think with everything that happened with DeMar Hamlin, there's no way Tua takes the field.
He can't.
He can't, right? So I'm going into this analysis assuming that Tua is not playing, and I also Teddy Bridgewater might not be playing.
I think it's Skylar Thompson.
Right. So if it's Skylar Thompson, forget about it. This is going to be quick. Skylar Thompson is not Brock Purdy. Skylar Thompson is also a 7th round pick. He's out of Kansas State. He just obviously like he's being thrown to the wolves a little too soon. I feel bad for the kid because he has no time to get his feet under him. He might be a pretty good football player. Look, I'm not going to sit here and crap on Skylar Thompson, but at the end of the day, he's running into a machine that is built to win the Super Bowl, and that's the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills have won 7 straight games, the 2nd hottest team behind San Francisco. Josh Allen this season has thrown for over 4,000 yards, 35 touchdowns, ran for 7. He does, he does have his fair share of turnovers. But I don't think Miami has an answer for the combination of Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs over 1,400 yards receiving, 11 touchdowns. I do think that Buffalo, there's a little bit left to be desired from the pieces around Stephon Diggs. Gabriel Davis and Dawson Knox don't really impress me as far as a number 2 receiver and a tight end go. But again, Miami doesn't have a good pass defense to begin with. I don't know how they're going to solve the Stephon Diggs quandary that's going to face them on Sunday. Buffalo's number 2 in the league in points for and points against, number 2 in the league in yards per game, number 2 in yards per rush. So even though they don't have the sexy names at running back, Devin Singletary and Zach Moss and who's the other running back? I know they have one more.
Zach Moss not there anymore. That's bad info for me.
So who was
James Cook? James Cook's a rookie.
Pardon me, James Cook. You're right. The two of those guys, when you combine their stats, you get a stud running back out of the two of them, which a lot of NFL teams do nowadays anyway. They've covered their last 2 games heading into the postseason, although they are 0-2 against the spread against Miami this season. Miami has a good run defense. They have a bad pass defense. They pass well, but that's with Tua. Everything changes without him. So it's just not the same. Buffalo, I believe, Adam, correct me if I'm wrong, they're giving 10.5.
10.5
right now.
You hate to give up double digits in any game, especially a playoff game, but how the hell does Miami have an answer for Buffalo? I just don't see it. I don't see how they keep up with them. It's going to be a track meet for Buffalo from the gate. I have it 34-17 Bills, so I have Buffalo covering the 10.5.
Also, Al, on top of that, Raheem Mostert broke his thumb yesterday also.
Did he?
Yeah.
He'll play probably with a cast.
I don't know yet, but the scary thing with Tua for me was if I remember correctly, the last game he played after the game is when he had shown again concussion symptoms. Is that right?
Yeah, it was the Packers game. And
Right.
apparently the next day he was watching film with Mike McDaniel and he was like, I don't remember those plays.
Right. So he basically, which means he was playing with the concussion.
Right.
And so there's something called second impact syndrome, I think it is. But long story short, like his life is clearly, forget about the team. His life is in jeopardy if he's playing
long-term health.
Right.
And so but you know what? I still feel like they're going to find a way to get him on that field. And
do you think
I
it's
think
going to matter?
either way,
It's not going to matter.
I was about to say, I think either way the Dolphins are dead men walking. But if they throw out Skylar Thompson in Buffalo, that's going to be like Mike Tyson, Peter McNeely type stuff. That's going to be by the second quarter. It might be like 32-3 or 33-3 or something crazy. Like it might be out of hand. Really, you might see in a playoff game the Bills put backup guys in by the fourth quarter in that kind of game. He would have no shot. I don't care if he has Tyreek Hill, Tyrone Hill, doesn't matter. They're not doing anything in Buffalo. And on top of that, you have the whole situation with the emotions of DeMar Hamlin, which first and foremost, thankfully, he's doing better. That game was very obviously the whole country saw it and was scared to death of what we saw. So thankfully, he's doing a lot better now, and he apparently is back home in Buffalo at Buffalo Hospital. At least he's back in New York now. So, but all those emotions riding, there's no way the Dolphins have a chance in this game. I don't care who's the quarterback. I think the Bills are going to roll in this game. What was it, 10.5?
10.5.
If they play Tua, I think it could be because they played him pretty good a few weeks ago when they were up there with him. I would say like 27-21 Buffalo. But if they don't play, if he's not playing, I think that the Bills can win by 25, upwards of 25 plus points.
Chris, rank the Hills for me real quick. Tyreek Hill, Lauren Hill, Jonah Hill, Grant Hill.
Well, you got to go with Jonah Hill actually first because money-wise, he's probably made the most money out of that group at this point.
I think you're disrespecting Lauren Hill, though.
Lauren Hill actually is not disrespected because Lauren Hill didn't write her own stuff, and that's why she's made new music in 20-something years. There's a lot. If you look that up. There's a lot of people that don't like Lauren Hill anymore.
Are you sure she didn't write those songs?
Positive. She got sued.
I don't know, man.
She got sued because they were saying that they didn't get credit for the songs on the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill album, and she's never written an album after that.
That's news to me, and that might be my favorite album. Period.
Yeah, she's never written anything after that. So I don't know about Lauryn Hill. Grant Hill would have been great if it weren't for the injuries, and then Tyrone Hill. I mean, hey, Tyrone Hill.
Tyree. What about all right? Last one. What about Hank Hill?
Oh no, I ain't.
From King of the Hill.
Yeah, I'm not in on Hank Hill.
All right.
I'm not going to add much more to this game. I have Buffalo.
So give me a Hank Hill impression. Can you do a Hank Hill impression real quick?
I got 35-10 Buffalo.
Thought about it. Give us your prediction in Hank Hill's voice.
So all of us are on board with Buffalo covering the spread, assuming Skylar Thompson plays. Chris is going to take Miami with the points if Tua plays. I'm up next. I have Minnesota and the Giants, and this is the game that, honestly, I'm confused. I'm not really sure what to expect. Come this game, there are a lot of unknowns. I mentioned earlier, all these teams have played each other before. This one very recently, week 16, Minnesota edges the Giants 27-24 with a last second. I think it was like almost a 60-yard field goal.
60-yard, yep.
60-yarder from Greg Joseph. The Vikings pass defense is like is worse than the NFL, but the Giants' strength is not their passing game. The Giants' strength is their running game. Danny Dimes breaking contain, making plays with his legs. I'm not sure that it's enough at the end of the day. I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, as Chris disappears here on our screen. I don't think if there's two teams in the playoffs, at least in the NFC, that nobody believes in, I think it's Minnesota and I think it's the Giants. Am I right?
I think it's Minnesota more than anyone.
I think it is, especially given their seed. Like, I just don't think anybody truly thinks that they are what they are, and I think that those points are valid. I mentioned in my first breakdown, I think coaching is important. I think Brian Dable is one of the best coaches in the NFC. What he's done with that team is phenomenal. And the fact that he got those guys up to play on Sunday against the Eagles, that was a fired up football team, and those backups played extremely, extremely well. And to me, that's a testament of coaching.
Yeah.
But to me, what it comes down to at the end of the day is what quarterback do I trust more in this spot? And while Kirk Cousins has given all of us many reasons to doubt him, I still trust him more than I trust Daniel Jones. And I think Minnesota, as usual, just does enough to squeak by the Giants, who may be a year away. So I've got Minnesota 23-20. The line is Minnesota laying 2.5. If there was a game that I'm laying off, it's probably this. But I think Minnesota just does enough to get past this first game before getting pounded on by the 49ers in the second week of the playoffs. What do you guys think?
This is another game that the line said a lot to me. I mean, if you would have told me a few weeks ago, 2-3, even if you would have told me before the lines came out, Minnesota's only given 3 at home to the Giants, that's like a red flag. I mean,
that means they're even, basically.
Begging for Minnesota money. It really is. I agree with a lot of what Adam said. Minnesota's terrible on defense, though.
More against the pass. Their run defense is not great, but it's okay.
Right. It's okay. I mean, it's still like lower half of middle of the pack, though. They're 20th in the league at rush yards per game on defense.
Right.
Look, I don't have faith in either one of these quarterbacks, Kirk or Danny Dimes. And just this line is just saying too much to me. Like I feel like it should be like Minnesota minus 4.5, 5.5. So for it to be 3, it's telling me that you want to get that Minnesota money, and Vegas never loses. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take the upset here. I'm going to take the Giants 20-19.
So
finally some disagreement about time.
To your point, Al, the Vikings actually at home, their defense is even worse. So at home, they're dead last in the NFL in their defense against the pass. So if Daniel Jones can stay hot like he played last week. I'm sorry, not last week. 2 weeks ago. They can go in there and do some damage. So the Vikings broke the record, I believe it was, in the NFL this year for having an 11-0 record in games decided by in one possession games, 7 points or less. And a lot of the BS that was given to people through the media was they know how to win. Last year, they were in the same boat and had a mediocre record. And I'm wondering this year if it's just that they've been more lucky than good. I actually love the Giants in this game. I think it's going to be 29-20 Giants. Giants are also playing in the revenge factor. They had just got their heart broken, like you said, Seltzer, a few weeks ago. That was a big loss for them at the time.
Yeah.
And they had a huge shades of 2017 when they were here week 3 and Jake Elliott put himself on the map and made the 61-yard field goal to beat them at the end of the game. But they had that was a big loss for them at the time. And they played a hard game. They played a really tough,
a great
hard game. Yes, it was. And because of how close that game could have went either way. And I think now with the Giants coming in, smelling blood, and also having some momentum and confidence from the performance that their depth had this past week in Philly, I love the Giants in this matchup. I predicted that I thought that Minnesota and Dallas could be out in the first round before we knew the matchups, and I love that prediction even more now that we do see the matchups. I don't think Minnesota's good, straight up. I just don't think they're good. And I think that's going to show this week. And I don't trust Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins, I believe, has one playoff win?
He's got at least one.
I know he won that 1 year, I think, in New Orleans. And I believe that was his first one. I could be wrong on that.
I'll look that up while we finish this up.
But yeah, so I think that they are going to lose this game. Remember also, this team, before that historic comeback against the Colts, they were down 33 to nothing or whatever it was to the Indianapolis Colts in Minnesota. All right, let's not get it twisted and forget about that.
Kirk Cousins is 1-3 in playoff games. To be fair, I mean, I don't know why he was 3 for 10. One was against the Seahawks I think that was the game that RG3 blew out his leg, so that doesn't count because he didn't start that game. Did RG3 get hurt against the Seahawks?
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. That time.
Yeah, and he was 3 for 10 in that game, so he didn't start. So he's 1-2 as a starter. He lost to Green Bay in 2016, and then he got a win at New Orleans in 2020, and then he lost the following week to the 49ers.
And on top of that, his infamous prime time record that he has.
Correct.
Yeah.
So,
although to be fair, that comeback against the Colts was technically, I would say, prime. I guess not prime.
No, it was a 1 o'clock game.
Well, it was a Saturday game.
Yeah, that's not a prime time.
I feel like he just had a primetime game where he played pretty good.
Well, I'm just saying he's got a well established poor record in big games. And I think it continues. Like I said, 29-20 Giants. Giants are going to find themselves back in South Philly in 2 weeks.
What a job by Brian Dable to just minimize Danny Jones's inability to not turn it over. I mean, only 5 picks this year, and then just to get, I mean, let's be honest, kind of got lucky with Saquon and the health, but just to run Saquon into the ground.
Yep.
Yeah, he actually was my second choice for coach of the year.
Yeah.
I mean, that team was awful last year.
Yeah. And they were supposed to be awful this year.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So let's get to the last game. Chris, we'll throw it to you for Baltimore and Cincinnati, which is the nightcap on Sunday.
So for this game is a fascinating game, I think, because of things off the field. Obviously, Lamar Jackson has had a situation where he's got a knee injury. It was supposed to be that he'd be back for the Christmas Eve game. Christmas Eve came and went. Lamar Jackson has not been seen. Last week, he was there was reports that he had a great chance to play. He did not play. They're now saying he has a great chance to play this week. We'll see by Wednesday if he's even limited in practice or not. Apparently he's got some legit swelling still that's in his knee. And I just think it's weird that I know that they talked to Harbaugh the other day at the press conference, and he gave a really strange response. He basically said, I'm paraphrasing, but he basically said, like, I don't really know what's going on with Lamar. All I can do is worry about who I have on the field. And that's your franchise quarterback. So I find it hard to believe that in that spot, you don't know or shouldn't there's any kind of situation where as a head coach, you wouldn't know the status of your franchise quarterback. So I think there's a little bit of a situation going on behind the scenes there with him with his contract, all kind of other things going on. He probably shouldn't. This is why he should have had an agent, I think, to have this mapped out by now. But I'm going in a lot about Lamar because that is really the factor in this game. And I think that if Lamar can't be himself, if he plays, if he can't be himself and not 100%, and he can't utilize his mobility the way he normally would when healthy, even though I think Lamar is kind of, in a sense, underrated as far as his arm is concerned, I still don't think it's going to be good enough to win this game against the Bengals. Bengals are red hot. I believe they are. I think they've won 8 in a row now. And going back into that building for this playoff game, it's going to be rocking. And I just don't see I don't see Baltimore having a realistic chance in this game. If Lamar doesn't play, it's going to be similar to the Bills-Dolphins situation. This game, I think, can get out of hand pretty quick. Last week was kind of in a similar situation as the Eagles had, I think. The Bengals they knew that they wanted to play hard enough to win because they didn't want to have that stupid coin flip situation play out. But at the same time, I think they knew they could beat the Ravens kind of half-assed. And I think that's kind of what they were yesterday. Previously to that, the Bengals have lit up the Ravens pretty good. And I think that's going to continue again in this game. So I think Baltimore's defense actually could show up a little bit for a while in this game. And then I think maybe the second half, Cincinnati gets some big touchdowns late. But I think it's going to be around, what's the line? 6.5 right now for Cincinnati. Is it still 6.5?
Yep.
So I would say 26-17 Cincinnati. And I think if that's with Lamar playing. If Lamar doesn't play, again, I think it's upwards of 3 touchdowns if they win this game by.
I'll give you a bold prediction. You want a bold prediction?
Yeah, why not?
Lamar Jackson's not going to play on Sunday.
So he's in a bad spot because he's in a lose-lose.
Hold on. Let me finish.
Yeah, go ahead.
Lamar Jackson's never going to play another game for the Baltimore Ravens. This is it. They're not going to sign him. There's going to be an ugly exit. This is it. And Baltimore's looking at this thing like, you didn't finish the season this year. They didn't make the playoffs last year, but he didn't finish the season last year. That's why they didn't make the playoffs. Right. Year before that, they were in the playoffs. He didn't finish that game. They're looking at these contracts that are being thrown out for Russell Wilson, for Kyler Murray, for Deshaun Watson. And they're saying, do we want to hitch our wagons to a guy that we're not really sure about? Maybe we just rebuild with another quarterback. I don't know.
Not Tyler Huntley, though, right? Like they
got
no.
Yeah. Like they're going to have to rebuild through the draft, or Derek Carr may be available in the offseason. Like Derek Carr may be a fit there, among other guys. So Aaron Rodgers might be a fit there in Baltimore. Yeah. I just think that this is it for the Lamar era. You could tell by Harbaugh's responses, he's not thrilled with how that all is going.
Right.
So I don't see why Baltimore sits Tyler Huntley last week if they think that Lamar is going to play next week. Like, why are they protecting Tyler Huntley if Lamar Jackson is playing? If they maybe they don't want the Bengals to see Huntley, but that would only mean that Huntley's playing this week, right? Does that make sense? What I'm saying?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I just think it's a lose-lose though for Lamar because, and he's going to put him. Both parties have put themselves here in this spot. The Ravens are going to hold it against him in the offseason with the contract talks that he missed these games. And if he doesn't play in the playoff game, they're going to hold it against him even more, to your point, like you just said. Like, we've closed out the last 2 seasons and you have not been on the field.
That's why he's leaving. And, like, he'll still – like, somebody's going to pay him.
I just read a report that he's atop the Jets wish list for
Right.
this offseason.
Right.
If Lamar Jackson goes to the Jets are a problem. I'm telling you that right now.
If he stays on the field.
If he can say right. But if he stays healthy and he goes to the Jets are going to be a problem next year.
Well,
With that defense and those young weapons that they got on offense, with the kid from
Wilson
Ohio
and
State,
Hall.
Wilson and Brees Hall healthy back next year, they're going to be legit. But yeah, I just think it's a weird situation. They do have the franchise tag option, but I don't know if they may not even want to utilize that on him based on his prior history at this point.
Right. Then you're just riding out next season exactly how you rode out this season.
Yeah. So, but man, their offense. Talk about Jalen Hurts. I think the Eagles and the Ravens more than any other team have their roster built around their quarterback, and their offensive roster, I should say. Without Lamar Jackson, that offense is maybe one of the worst, if not the worst, offense in football.
Well, they didn't do any favors by putting any weapons around him.
No.
Like J.K. Dobbins has actually been really good since he came back. I think he leads the NFL in rushing yards since like week 14.
They went through a stretch in that game yesterday, and I don't know if it ended because I didn't look at the stats at the end of it. But at one point going into the third quarter, they had no receptions from their wide receivers.
Right. Well, I mean, Anthony Wright was playing quarterback,
and he was terrible.
Is that name Anthony Wright?
No. I think it's like Anthony Brown.
It's Anthony Brown.
Right? Well, Anthony Wright used to play quarterback for them.
Yes, he did, like 20 years ago.
Yeah, that was like back in the day, bro. We were in high school, I think.
We're getting off point. I got Bengals 24-14. I think Chris, you mentioned the Ravens defense. The Ravens defense is always up to the task. I agree with you. I think they can keep it close for maybe 2.5 quarters, but there's just not enough offense there. So I got Bengals covering 24-14, similar score to you. And I'm under the assumption Lamar does not play, but even if he does, I don't see it going any differently.
And even the guy that they drafted in Rashad Bateman, that was supposed to be a weapon for a little bit right now, and then also especially for the future, he gets hurt.
Yeah, he can't stay on the field either.
So you got Mark Andrews, who's a nice player, and that's like your best player is your tight end, and you have no receivers whatsoever. You have some running backs, but again, when you get into a playoff situation, you're down 10, 13, 15 points, you're not going to be able to run the ball.
Yep, absolutely.
So I just think that both parties, the Ravens management and Lamar himself, have put themselves both in bad spots here. And I would not be surprised to see what you just said play out. They can't pay him legit money. Like, you can't pay Lamar Jackson over $250 million right now, can you?
Somebody's going to. I don't know if I'd want to be that team, but like somebody is going to write that contract. He's worth more than Kyler Murray. And if you don't think he's at least preaching that, like, I mean, is he worth more than Jalen Hurts? He's got an MVP on his, like I think Hurts is better, but Lamar's got an MVP sitting on his mantle.
That is true, though. That is true.
His record as a starter is extremely good.
Yeah. There was a point in time where the Ravens didn't lose to anybody if they didn't have an arrowhead on their helmet. Like they beat up everybody except the Chiefs.
Yeah.
And I think I saw something yesterday where when Lamar Jackson is healthy, the Ravens offense was ranked like top 5 in the league because of what he can do, with his mobility. He's a threat to run the ball. He's a threat to throw deep balls. Very dangerous dude.
But I don't know. I mean, and maybe the weapons. I agree with you. He hasn't had any weapons, but I don't think he's turned the corner as a passer like they wish he would.
I think he's way better than he used to be when he came in the league.
I mean, I don't know.
I think he's got a great arm, but at the same time, he doesn't like.
Reminds me of Vic. Like Vic had a gun and he could throw a great deep ball, but that underneath pass,
no touch.
He didn't have that touch.
He had a ceiling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Al, what do you have? You didn't give your prediction.
30-10, Cincinnati.
Fair enough.
Cincinnati's they're another team. They're just a machine. They're built to win the Super Bowl.
And also, one thing we didn't talk about real quick. If Lamar still has swelling, does he even allow them to take a chance on having him play in that game? Like, he might just be like, I'm cool, bro.
I think he's checked out. I don't think he's playing.
That's what I'm saying. Like, he might be the one that's like, I'm not playing in this game.
Right. He's got the final call. If you don't want to play, you ain't going to play.
All it takes is for one hit in that situation and to blow your knee out. You're not getting a dime.
I can't believe you talked this much about Lamar Jackson when Joe Burrow hasn't gotten 2 seconds.
Because we know Joe Burrow. We trust Joe Burrow. Like, Joe Burrow's not in a situation where there's any kind of flack or BS behind him right now, like Lamar is. So, like that.
Did you even just bring up Joe Flacco? You're going to talk about Joe Flacco and
Flacco's and Consahawkin. Yeah, no, I mean, Burrow is like I've said before, he's probably my favorite player in the league, and like, dude just got swag. And the Bengals, like, no, that team struts around and has that swag that he gives them. Like, he gives them that next level type persona of being a championship caliber team. They almost won it last year. They might win it this year. But like,
you're starting a franchise. Is he the number 2 quarterback behind Mahomes?
Yeah.
The
only reason I was thinking was if I would put him ahead of Mahomes.
Oh, okay.
But I wouldn't. I don't think I could do that.
Allen's in the conversation, but I'd still probably go Burrow.
That's what I was thinking. It's him and Allen for number 2.
And Herbert, if you believe, but here Herbert's got more to prove.
Yeah.
The way I wanted to close this segment, and let's just do a list without much commentary, as we've the segment has almost hit its time, is I want you to rank the games that interest you the most from 1 to 6, and I'll start with my list of what games I'd like to watch the most. So for me, number 1 is Minnesota and the Giants, just because I have no idea how that's going to play out, and I'm interested to see how it is. And I've already broken my rule of no comments. 2 is Tampa Bay, Dallas. 3 is Jacksonville and the Chargers. 4, San Fran, Seattle. 5, Baltimore, Cincy, and 6, Buffalo, Miami. Al, what do you have?
Very similar, except at the top I have Dallas and Tampa Bay, and then I have the Chargers and the Jaguars. Then I have the Giants and Vikings, followed by the Seahawks at the Niners, Ravens at the Bengals, Dolphins at the Bills.
First?
Yeah, and as you said, as far as interest is concerned,
yeah.
So I would go Dallas, Tampa Bay 1, Baltimore, Cincinnati actually is 2, Miami, Buffalo is 3, Giants, Minnesota is 4, Chargers, Jacksonville is 5, Seattle, San Francisco is 6.
You just want to watch these stinker games, dude.
Well, because I want to see. I live for the drama, bro. I want to see the drama in Cincinnati. I want to see what.
I was talking about Miami, Buffalo.
Huh?
I was talking about Miami, Buffalo.
Well, I think just off the field stuff with Buffalo. Buffalo is like America's team now, and I wanted to see how that plays out. And I just also I've not been big on Miami all year. And I think that coach is a dope.
It's wild that it's wild they're talking about firing him and the D coordinator, and they're in the playoffs.
And they probably, there's a case for it. I mean, he reminds me of either one of you watched Shameless?
I didn't finish it, but I watched a lot of seasons.
Yeah, he reminds me of Ian from Shameless. Older Ian. But yeah, that dude. I mean, he's so busy trying to be like cute and different and wear funny things and make those little funny comments that he made at the press conference where he said
he was
what was the thing he said about picking up Mike Lennon, and he was like, first off,
like, he liked his name.
I like his name. And
well, sounds a lot like year 1 Nick Sirianni to me.
I was just about to say, so if they kept him, maybe next year he does even a better job. I don't know, but I think that Sirianni seems like a real football coach. He's a little bit quirky. McDaniel looks like a guy who was in the right place at the right time, and the Dolphins were like, "Hey, how'd you like to be the head coach of the Miami Dolphins?" And he was like, "What? All right." And then he just did it. Like, I think he's an all right guy at all to me.
It ended rough for him, but I think he's an all right coach. I'm not out on Mike McDaniel.
I mean, if you were an NFL player, if you're a 6'4", 245, 255-pound dude, and this dude walks in and he's like, "Hey, here's what we're gonna do, guys." Like, I'd be like, "Who is this?"
When they were 8-3, nobody cared, though.
Yeah.
Well, they're 8-8 now, or 9-8, whatever they were, 8-9. What are they? 9-8. What's their record?
9-8.
9-8.
Speaking of records, we're gonna transition to segment 3.
Oh boy.
We're unlike every podcast. Every podcast in the beginning of the year puts their predictions out on paper, and then they kind of let it go to waste. That's not what we're going to do here. We're going to give you guys receipts. We have our fantasy rankings from earlier this year, as well as our over-under for our wins and losses. So we're going to review. We're going to look through some of our good picks, some of our bad picks, and have some laughs, as well as cry. I've also added in, at the end of the podcast, stay tuned, as I've put in some of our best and worst quotes from our preseason episodes. So stay tuned for that as well. We will be right back with segment 3. Welcome back to segment 3. As I mentioned, we're going to be going through our receipts here. And we're going to start in the fantasy football. You know, Chris and I, we went through early in the year. We started off with our top 15 quarterbacks that we ranked going into the season. Chris, how many of your top 15 do you think you got right? I'm not saying in the right spot. I'm saying how many in your top 15 are on the top 15 at all?
I'll be brutally honest. I have no recollection of even picking that segment. I guess 8.
8 is correct.
No, really?
8 is correct.
Who are you going to give?
And you would think it would be more because it's pretty obvious picks. I also only had 8. So your 8 that you had correct were in no order. This is the order you ranked them in of the ones you got. Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Tom Brady, Jalen Hurts, Trevor Lawrence. Now I'm going to give you your list, all or the ones that you missed. You had Kyler Murray at 5. You had Russell Wilson at 6. Derek Carr.
Let Russ cook, bro. Let Russ cook.
Russell Wilson might not be 36.
You ain't kidding. You had Derek Carr at 9, Stafford at 11, Dak at 12, Trey Lance at 13, and 15, Jameis Winston.
Oh, credibility killer there, Chris.
Now,
hold on, my sound is going out. What happened? What'd you say? Who was it?
Unfortunately, Chris's list is better than mine, as in a similar boat. The only difference, I had Aaron Rodgers and Kirk Cousins both on my list, which both were correct.
I had a couple guys that got hurt, and that's why I didn't make it.
I mean, that's part of fantasy, though.
Yeah,
No, I know.
I had my misses were Russell Wilson at 3, Dak Prescott at 5, Kyler Murray at 7, Matt Stafford at 8, Derek Carr at 11, and then I apologize to everybody for 14 and 15. Baker Mayfield at 14 and Matt Ryan at 15.
Oh man!
So the only other thing
where'd they actually finish?
So here's the actual list of where they finished. Pat Mahomes was 1, Josh Allen was 2, Jalen Hurts 3, Joe Burrow 4, Geno Smith Geno Smith 5.
Adam, before you keep going, can I just real quick? Is Tua in the top 15?
Tua was 13.
Okay. Is Justin Fields in the top 15?
He was 9th.
Is Jared Goff in the top 15?
He was 6.
Goff was the best quarterback they said in the league fantasy-wise, I think, after week 10 or 8.
Cooking, man.
Yeah.
Brady's up there?
Yeah, we both had Brady. If I missed
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, we both had Brady.
All right,
I was just asking.
The only other one that we both missed that we talked about already was Daniel Jones at 11.
Wow.
I was just asking where Baker and Matt Ryan finished at.
I didn't even check that list.
Did Daniel Jones have a lot of rushing touchdowns and rushing yards?
Oh yeah,
he had some rushing yards.
Okay, so real, just to the listeners, I don't play fantasy and I haven't for about a decade because I know he only threw 15 touchdowns. So I guess
he killed on the ground.
Did he? Okay.
So I guess the thing is, if you don't get one of the studs, Mahomes, Allen, Hurts, Burrow, like after that list, Geno, Goff, Lawrence, Cousins, Fields, Brady, Jones, Herbert, Tua, Rodgers, Lamar. Those are the top 15 in our dynasty scoring system.
Let me ask you a question, guys, real quick, because we talked about Lamar last segment. Daniel Jones is also up for contract. What is he going to get? Also, on Pro Football Reference, his nickname is Vanilla Vic.
I'd have to look at the other contracts. I mean, obviously, he's easier to commit to because he's not going to command as much money as Lamar.
Right.
I think, I don't know, what's Kirk Cousins get right now?
I don't know.
That's somewhere in that range. Let's stay to the fantasy because we got a lot to go through.
Yeah, I was gonna say I was just kind of throwing that out there just on the cuff, but
So let's so Chris, we cut down the running backs. We only did 10 each with a sleeper and a bust. How many running backs in the top 10 do you think you got?
Again, no recollection of the segment. I'm gonna say 11.
We only ranked 10.
What?
I thought you said 15. I'm sorry. I'm spaced out. I thought you said you had 15. All right, so I'll say 7 then.
Oh man. 6.
Okay.
So again, I think part of this was like a lot of the names are similar. But a lot of the guys that we think of in the preseason are not necessarily the guys that end up there. I also only had 6.
They're like, this guy's an idiot.
So here were the 6 names that you got that showed up: Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook, Austin Eckler, Saquon Barkley, Nick Chubb. I actually had the same 6. Those were the only ones that we got. And the other 4 were all misses.
So Miles
Sanders finished 10th. You're probably not going to get, well,
I got nothing off the top of my
what'd
head.
you say?
Josh Jacobs.
Josh Jacobs finished 2nd.
Yeah.
And then Tony Pollard was what looks like 7th, and Aaron Jones was 8th. So, Chris, your best pick, and we both missed. We both had Jonathan Taylor at 1. We're both a miss. You had Joe Mixon at 4. You had Najee Harris at 5, and
I was big on Mixon. I remember that.
And DeAndre Swift at 10. I had Taylor at 1. My biggest miss, I had Cam Akers at 4, who fell off until the end of the season. I had Najee Harris at 8 and A.J. Dillon at 9. My biggest hits, I had Nick Chubb at 5, and he finished 5. And I had Saquon at 3, which is a lot higher than most people. Most people had him outside the top 10. I would say your biggest – you were pretty much spot on with a lot of the other guys with where Henry and Cook finished. You're right around the same ballpark there. But I wanted to touch on our sleepers and our busts because we did a really good job there.
Adam
You
Jamal
had Ramondre
Williams.
Stevenson as a sleeper. He finished 12th overall for running backs. You had Leonard Fournette as a bust. He actually finished 16th, but he was getting drafted a lot higher, so I gave you credit for that one. For me, I had a sleeper. I had Devin Singletary, which I gave myself credit for because – well, I said specifically in my speech that he was being drafted 35th or 36th. And I thought he could finish inside the top 25, and he finished 23rd. So I gave myself credit. And for my bust, I had Javonte Williams, who obviously got hurt.
Right.
So ended up working out. But given how bad Denver was, I think he would have still probably been a bust.
Yeah.
Jamal Williams didn't crack the top 10 with all the touchdowns. He didn't have enough yards.
I think he was just outside.
Okay.
Also, real quick, Al, how many – I think it's funny. How many rushing yards do you think Daniel Jones had?
I mean, my guess is going to be different now after what you guys told me. So I'll say like 540.
708.
Wow.
708 yards on the ground.
How many touchdowns did he have? Because I mean, my mind's going to be blown.
I bet you had 6 rushing touchdowns.
I just did the yardage. I didn't do the touchdowns.
That's fine.
But he shattered the Giants' rushing record for a quarterback.
Oh, you mean the likes of Eli Manning and Kerry Collins weren't lighting the world on fire with their feet?
Yeah. Some dude from
Jared Lorenzen wasn't motoring down the field.
Hey, rest in peace.
R.I.P. Yeah, R.I.P.
So Chris, wide receivers where you got me again. We both had the same amount of quarterbacks and running backs. You had 6 of the top 10 receivers. I had 5 of the top 10 receivers. So your hits were Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams, CeeDee Lamb, Stephon Diggs, AJ Brown, and Tyreek Hill. I had Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams, CeeDee Lamb, Stephon Diggs, and Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle probably my best hit inside the top 10. Our misses, yours were Cooper Kupp, Jamar Chase, who obviously would have been in if he would have not got hurt, Michael Pittman, and Cortland Sutton.
Pittman would have been there if he had a quarterback.
Yeah. Cooper Kupp for me, Mike Evans, Jamar Chase, Deebo Samuel, and Jerry Jeudy. The 3 receivers that we missed on, Amari Cooper finished 8th, Amon-Ra St. Brown finished 9th, and Devontae Smith finished 10th.
I would have said Smith. Cooper, wow. I
under the radar good year.
Yeah, that's really surprising.
And I'll quickly touch on our sleepers and our busts, not as good as our running backs. Your sleeper was Michael Thomas, who, if we're getting credit for games played, still wouldn't have done well this year as he was injured again.
I had him as my sleeper.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah, you're right.
And your bust was the aforementioned Amari Cooper, who we can't give you credit for because he finished 8th. My sleeper, also horrible. I had Elijah Moore from the Jets. I guess I didn't realize how good Garrett Wilson was going to be. Kind of thought Moore would fit into that Wilson role, which was a complete miss. But my bust was a hit. I had Deontay Johnson as my bust. I think Deontay Johnson set the NFL record, I believe, for most receptions in a season without a touchdown. I think he had 84 catches and 0 touchdowns.
Wow, the David Boston Award for
Mhm.
most receptions without a touchdown.
But let's get to the fun stuff, boys. The over/under predictions. We put a lot of work into them in the preseason. Unfortunately, Al, you were only with us for 2 divisions. You were a part-timer back then, so we're going to get to your divisions as they come up. I will just run through them as we do here. Chris, 32 teams. We gave predictions for over/unders. How many do you think you hit on?
29.
Not quite. I'll give you one other guess.
Dude,
All right.
15.
We're gonna how many?
15.
All right, we're gonna find out as we go. We'll start in the NFC East, and I want you guys to chime in if you thought any picks were good, if something went bad, or if you go back and do it again. Now that we have a little more conversation here, Al, you were also a part of the NFC East, so we'll be able to jump into your thing here. I'll quickly run through. The Philadelphia Eagles were at 9.5. All 3 of us hit the over. All winners.
That one.
The Dallas Cowboys were 9.5. You guys both had the under. I had the over. The Washington Redskins were 8.5. We all had the under. We all hit.
Commanders.
Thank you for that.
We only use bigot language on this podcast.
And last but not least, the New York Giants was 7.5. We all took the under. We all lost. So 3-1 for me, 2-2 for you guys. Any quick thoughts on your picks on that division and what went wrong or what went right?
I'm just happy the Eagles shattered the over on that. That's all I care about in that one.
Chris, you had the Eagles at 13-4. Al, you had them at 12-5. I had them 11-6.
Damn, I almost hit that. Damn.
I think just real quick, my Dallas pick was probably more wishful thinking than actual, like, what I thought would happen.
I'm pulling up. I'm going to let everybody know if there was any exact hits on anything. Washington had a tie, and so did the Giants. So there's no exact hits there. So again, through the one division, Al's 2-2, Chris is 2-2. I'm 3-1. We go to the NFC North, and again, Al is only back in for one other division. The Green Bay Packers were 10.5. I had the over. Chris had the under. Obviously, the under ends up hitting. The Chicago Bears 5.5. We both had the under. We both end up hitting. The Minnesota Vikings were 9.5. I had the over. We both had the over, so we both hit. And the Detroit Lions, Chris's boys, 6.5, but Chris took the under.
Ooh.
I thought they were going to be about 5 or 6. I don't know. I think they were going to be ready to make that jump.
You have at 6-11. I had the over, actually. I had them at 7-10. I don't think there's any exact hits here as well, unless you hit on. No exact hits here. I had the Vikings at 12-5. They ended up going 13-4. Probably my best pick in there. Chris, your best pick's probably the Packers under.
And actually, if you remember that episode, I'm 99% positive I said about the Lions that I thought that they were going to be okay this year and really good next year.
You were like high on them your entire dissertation, and you're like, I'll take the under.
Because they only won 2 games last year, whatever it was.
And then the total was high, 6.5, but they ended up winning 9 games.
No, they had a great year.
Great second half of the year.
Yeah.
Al, any thoughts on that division overall as we kind of just recap?
I think it played out to what a lot of people thought, because there were a lot of people that thought that this was going to be the year that the Packers kind of bowed out, and it was.
Chicago Bears started the season 2-1 and finished 3-14.
Yeah, they beat the Niners week 1, wiped me out of
that
all
was in
my
that
fiber pools.
That was in that rainstorm.
Yep.
All right, we go to the NFC South. Tampa Bay was 11.5. I took the under. Chris, you had them at 14-3.
Yeah, I remember that.
So I get the win there. Just to say on the North, we both went 3-1 in the NFC North.
All right.
New Orleans Saints, 8.5 was the total. We both took the under, and we both hit. I actually hit that on the nose at 7 and 10. The
What did I
last
have?
two, what'd you say?
But I had the Saints at
8 and 9.
Okay.
The last
Gave us
two
that
were
10th pick. Shout out to the Saints for that 10th pick this year.
no doubt. The last two were both losers for us. The Atlanta Falcons, we both had under 4.5. Falcons win 7 games. And the Carolina Panthers, it was an ugly pick for me.
No,
Six
you
and,
love
a,
that.
6.5 was the total. I had them at 10 and 7.
I thought you had him at like 14 and 3 at one point.
Oh boy.
You had them at 7
Okay.
and 10, Chris. You also had the over. But yeah, I kind of had really high hopes for the Carolina Panthers as a sleeper team.
What was my record for them?
7 and 10. So you had them over as well. But the Carolina Panthers finished actually right on the nose, 7 and 10.
I was going to say they were 7 and 10. Yeah.
They finished 7 and
Seltzer,
10.
what'd you end up doing with that Baker Mayfield jersey you bought?
Wait a minute, hold on a second. Panthers were total win total was 6.5. They went 7 and 10. They got the over hits.
Yeah, I was going to say. I was confused by
I gotta
that.
correct the records here.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I just saw I had 10 wins, so maybe I was just a little
Need
bit.
to get an intern for this stuff, bro.
That was the best bet winner for me too. What were you saying, Al?
Said, what'd you do with that Baker Mayfield jersey?
I traded him for a Rams one. All right, so I went 3 and 1 in the NFC South. You go 2 and 2.
That's
NFC,
after you corrected the Panthers?
yeah, that's after I corrected the Panthers. You lost the Buccaneers and the Falcons.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll go to the NFC West. This is where Al joined us as well for this one. Al hits on Seattle at 5.5. He took the over. Chris, you and I both had the under.
That's a great hit by Al. I thought Seattle was not going to do it. Was trash.
And dude, Al had him at 6 and 11, so it wasn't even like he was that high on him at 9 and 8 for Seattle.
Yeah, but still, hey, the payout's the payout.
One of my biggest regrets in this pod was that episode, I told you this before, I had this huge write-up on how Geno Smith could turn things around this year, but then both of you talked about Drew Lock being the starter, and I just deleted the whole thing.
Nobody's seen Drew Lock since.
Yeah, we were crazy. That was the first team we previewed too. Like, I hope people don't.
Dude, he's another one. Do the Seahawks, do they give him a deal and not try to trade up and draft a quarterback?
He finished the season real shaky.
That's a decision for them.
All three of us took an L on the Los Angeles Rams at 10.5. I had him with 13 wins. Chris 12. Al had him at 11.
But guess what? The whole country did that though because they were historically bad this year.
Yeah, they were
Super Bowl champion. They were historically bad.
We all hit the under on the Arizona Cardinals, who were 8.5. I had them at 7 wins. Chris had them at 6. Al had them at 7 as well. Cardinals win 4 games.
Someone might have even mentioned Cliff Kingsbury getting fired this year. I think
we did. We talked about him being the first coach getting canned.
Yeah.
It ended up being Hackett, but we all talked about Kingsbury getting
That's
canned.
a bonus hit. That's for the bettors out there. Bonus.
I was really down on them. I wish I would have made that my best bet, but I don't know why I took the Rams. The last one, Al is the only one with a winner on San Francisco. The total was 9.5. Al had them at 11 and 6, which is great. Chris, you had him with 8 wins. I had him at 9 wins. So we take L's there. Chris and I 1 and 3 in the NFC West. Al goes 3 and 1. So Al, through 2 divisions that you did, 5 and 3. Pretty good record there.
Yeah.
Chris, let's go to the AFC. New England Patriots 8.5. We both had them at 8 and 9. They finished 8 and 9. So 2 picks right on the screws there. They hit. Miami Dolphins 8.5. You had them under with 7 wins. I had them over with 9 wins. I actually hit that right on the nose. Dolphins go 9 and 8. New York Jets 5.5.
That was an infamous pick I had.
Chris takes them with 2 wins. You might hear that quote later on the pod. 2 and 15.
I got a quote for you.
No.
I got a quote for you. Go ahead.
No. Adam, you got to redo it now because guest's worst quote now has to be thinking that he hit 11 running backs out of the top 10.
Dude, I was multitasking.
That's got to be the new
late.
quote.
You know what I mean? I haven't had my
That was not a good look. That was not a good look for the pod. I had the Jets over. I had the Jets at 6 wins. So I hit that, and we both hit Buffalo over 11.5 as well. So 4-0 for me in the AFC East and 2-2 for you. Go to the North. We both lose a bullshit one on the Ravens, 10.5. The Ravens, I think they won like one of their last 4 games once Lamar went out. The Steelers get a backdoor. They were 7.5 was the total. We both took the over, and the over ends up hitting for them as they get to 9 wins somehow.
I can't believe that.
Yeah, they were like 3-8, I think, at one point, or 3-7 or something along those lines. Both of us hit the over on the Bengals as the total was 9.5, and we both hit the under on the Browns. So we both go 3-1 in the north of the AFC, losing the Ravens and hitting on the other 3. 2 more divisions to go. AFC South, we both hit the Tennessee Titans at under 9.5, which is we talk about the Ravens screwing us. I think the Titans were 7-2 and end up finishing 7-10.
No, they were 7-4 when we played them.
I don't know, I'm looking it up now.
I don't know if I don't think they lost 2 in a row coming into that week.
They lost 7 in a row. They lost their last 7 games.
Did they really?
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. They lost their last 7.
Is Mike Vrabel's job on the line?
I don't think so, given the success he's had there, but they fired some coordinators today.
Okay, well then he's fine then. Yeah, because they were saying on the radio yesterday about a dark horse to get fired, and they said him, and I didn't buy that.
Yeah, he's been too good there, and the quarterback issues, and the GM obviously got canned halfway through the year. That was just a mess.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Houston Texans, we both hit on under 4.5. Texans go 3-13-1. Completely blow their shot, the first overall pick yesterday. Just
so dumb.
So bad.
well, like I said, they're not going up to the same. I mean, unless the Bears are going to trade that pick, which I don't think they will, because I'm pretty sure they've been locked in on Will Anderson regardless. I don't think it's going to matter because
but they could trade down to 3 and get Will Anderson because Houston's picking a quarterback, and if they trade to somebody who's picking a quarterback,
they could, but I mean, I guess who would trade? You think like the Colts maybe would trade the 1?
Colts, Jets.
Jets gonna have to give up a little bit of something to get up.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like these teams, right? Like the Colts would probably be the.
I could see Jim Irsay having them, make sure they get somebody in there to make that move, because they've already given up a lot of capital in the draft on Wentz and everything else. So like they got to right that wrong.
Well, and they've had success with number 1 overall picks. I mean, with Manning and Luck, even though Luck ended up bailing on them sooner. So I could see them making that move.
Is Stroud the guy?
I like Stroud over Young, but I don't know.
I actually don't. I like Bryce Young more, but they're the 2 consensus top 2, like 1 and 1A. It seems like.
Don't trust Ohio State quarterbacks, dude. None of them make it in the NFL.
Well, you can't really trust a lot of Alabama ones either.
Yeah, who's a good Alabama quarterback that's done it?
Jalen Hurts.
Mac Jones.
Oklahoma.
Both.
Joe Namath.
You guys are overlooking Will Levis.
Will Levis is good.
Yeah.
I like Will Levis. I don't think he'll be number 1 pick though.
I don't either.
But I saw a video. Did you see the video on Twitter, Al, with Levis?
Throwing darts.
Dude, he's got a gun.
I'll be honest with you. That's the only Will Levis film I've ever seen. I didn't watch a down of Will Levis.
He's got a gun. Only thing I don't like is apparently last minute he pulled out of the bowl game that they had, and they ended up getting shut out to, I think, Iowa, I think it was.
No, who cares, dude? The bowl game. Look, I know, but the bowl games
I agree with that, but I'm saying as far as like if I was a teammate and that happened, like if you're gonna do that, do it off the bat. Make the presence.
All right, so he takes them all out to dinner once he signs an NFL contract.
Yeah, all's good.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the case, then yeah, I mean, I'll see you out there, bro.
Let's finish up the South here. Jacksonville, we differed on. I had the under 6.5. You took the over, so you hit there. And then we both took an L on the Colts. Oh, we both had over 9.5.
Oh,
God, I told you guys about that. Jesus.
I mean, that division just looked horrible.
First of all, not only was that take that we had bad, but that line was terrible.
What, 9.5?
9.5 was all. That's a bad line for Vegas. That's a bad job.
I mean, everybody thought they were going to be good.
Dude.
I mean, the line was good enough that we all took
get
the
another
over,
job
got
somewhere
banged.
next year.
So you go 3-1 in the AFC South. I go 2-2. And then we go to the AFC West.
All right, go.
Kansas City Chiefs. I had the under. You had the over.
You hated the Chiefs in the summer.
I had them 8-9. I didn't hate them. I was going out on a limb.
With that schedule they had this year?
Needed some traction. But like I've said many times in the podcast, we thought the AFC West was going to be better.
Well, yeah, everybody did.
Vegas, we both took an L. We both had the over 8.5. Vegas was horrible this year. We both hit the over on the Chargers. The total was 9.5. I had them at 13 wins. You had them at 12. But either way, it hits. And then Denver, 8.5. You had them at 11 wins. I had the under on Denver. I had them at 8 wins, so I end up hitting there. I go 2-2. You go 2-2. Final tally, you were 18-14. So winning record. I was actually 21-11.
Denver might not win 11 games in 2 years.
It's amazing though. The offense showed some signs of life once they fired Hackett.
Well, yeah, I figured that was going to happen too. That guy was an idiot.
What pick do you regret the most, and what pick do you think was your best pick?
I think the Jets I regret. Obviously, that was a bad pick by me. And I think the one that I want to say based on my explanation of it and how it played out, I want to say the Eagles. I'm proud of that Eagles pick.
That's fair. For me, I would say Kansas City was my worst pick. I was trying to go out on a limb there. That's even worse than the Carolina one. And for my best one, I was actually, even though I didn't have a ton, I was really, really confident in Arizona going under.
Yeah, we both were really set on that.
I thought that was a really bad line. You went 4-4 with your best bets. I went 6-2. Al, I accidentally forgot to write down which ones were your best bets. I don't know if you remember off the top of your head.
San Fran or Seattle was. I know that I think it was San Fran. I'm almost positive it was San Fran.
Okay. In the East, you remember?
I don't remember in the East. It might have been the Giants.
Gotcha. The last thing that we'll go over, and then we can wrap this up, is the playoff teams. I'll just go quickly. Al, you were probably the best of us all. In the AFC, you hit 6 out of 7, including you hit 3 out of 4 division winners. You hit Buffalo, Kansas City, and Jacksonville. And then you had Baltimore winning the North, who ended up getting a wild card. You had Cincinnati as the wild card, so you got to flip those. You had the Chargers. Your only miss was Denver.
Yeah.
As a 6. In the NFC, all of your wild cards missed, but you hit all 4 division winners.
Did I hit? I think I hit them exact, right?
Yeah, you had them in the exact seed. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Philly, San Fran, Minnesota, Tampa Bay.
Boy, wish I would have bet some of this.
Yeah.
Chris, yours were good as well. In the NFC, you hit 5 out of 7 playoff teams. You missed the Rams and the Packers, so you're actually close to hitting. You were close to hitting 6 out of 7. Division winners, you hit Tampa and Philly, and then you had Minnesota, Dallas, and San Francisco as wild cards. In the AFC, you also hit 5 out of 7. You had the Colts winning the division, which is no good, and you had Denver as a wild card as well. You hit on Buffalo, Kansas City, and Cincinnati as division winners. Chargers and Baltimore as wild cards.
Okay.
I had the worst out of all of us for playoffs. I hit 4 out of 7 in the NFC. I hit on the Vikings, Tampa, and Eagles as division winners, and Dallas as a wild card, but I had Green Bay, Carolina, and the Rams. In the AFC, I hit 5 out of 7. I missed Indianapolis as well, and instead of Denver, I had Las Vegas as my 6th seed. I hit on the Chargers, Baltimore, and Buffalo, as well as Cincinnati. I was the only one with Miami in the playoffs as well. So, again, for a segment as far as information for you guys, it may not be that much, but we got to stay true to who we are and staying responsible for our picks here.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
With the playoffs about to begin, do you have in front of you our Super Bowl, like our pick, who we had making the Super Bowl and winning by any chance?
I don't have it in front of me on this sheet. Do you remember who it was? I know I had Rams over Buffalo.
I had Rams in Kansas City.
I had Buffalo over San Fran.
That sounds right.
That could still happen.
When we redid it in midway point of the season, I had San Fran. I don't remember. I think I had San Fran Buffalo when I redid it.
I mean, it could still happen. It won't though, because 49ers are going to be there, but we'll see.
The redo, I swapped out San Fran for Philly. I remember.
Chris, I was listening when I was going through some of these pods to like get information for quipping stuff and this and that. You said on an episode that San Francisco was the worst 5-4 team in the history of the NFL, and then they ran off 10 straight wins to close the season.
Dude, because look,
or however many wins.
One thing has been consistent. I have not been on them at all year.
Yeah, you're holding strong. I'll give you that.
And I've been consistent with the Vikings all year, not being big on them. But what I do want to do is go back to the fantasy segment because you had the worst take in the whole NFL preseason gambit that we had.
I don't even know
When
what
you said, when I gave you the Jalen Hurts top 10, you tell me what you said. You tell me and everybody else, remind us what you said.
Chris got that CBS receipt.
Yeah. It's bad. Listen, everybody knows I was out on Hurts at the beginning of the year.
What did you say?
I was my crow. I was wrong. I got no problem saying. I said he wasn't in the top 15 quarterback. I said there was a chance he wasn't going to finish the season as an Eagles starter.
And I quote, not ranked.
Not ranked.
Guess what? That not ranked ass almost won an MVP award.
He almost
he's not going to win the award.
He almost didn't finish the season though.
I almost was right there.
And what I'm gonna need you to do is right that wrong by apologizing to Jalen Hurts in a Hank Hill voice. That's what we need. You want to get? We need some more humor on the pod. I need you to give me the Hank Hill apology.
Listen,
for Jalen Hurts.
I'm a man of many skills. Impersonations is not one of them. So I ain't even going there. I am not going. But,
also, I want to, before we wrap up, I want to congratulate the University of Georgia for winning the national championship.
Is it over
now?
Their 65-7 victory over TCU.
Is that what it is?
Are you serious?
Yep.
Oh my God. Well, we didn't miss much by recording the pod during that game.
And I want to also say, Kirby Smart is probably one of my favorite head coaches in college football. When he asked him before the game about what they needed to do to win the game, and all he said was, in the stern, mean-looking face, aggression. We're going to hunt tonight. That's what he said. And they beat him by 50 what? 52? 50? No, not 52. 57?
You've shown tonight that math is not your strong suit.
No, my wife's a math teacher.
Wow, man.
But that's
Ohio State had them beat.
They're the new Bama, I think.
I mean, right now you would have to say so. And Saban's gone.
Is he?
No, am I lying? Did he say he was a couple of years? Did he announce that?
What, Nick Saban?
Did I dream that?
I don't remember here. Yeah, I don't remember
hearing anything
about that.
You having dreams about Nick Saban, bro?
Is he going to Arizona? Him and Lamar?
What? Dude, Kirby Smart won back-to-back national championships, man.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, they're the team to beat right now in the SEC. Yeah, I don't know where I came up with that Nick Saban thing.
College football's broken though. We were talking about it earlier.
Yeah, it's broken. I was just ready to run through the wall though when he said that.
I don't enjoy watching it. Not at all.
Notre Dame, we did beat South Carolina.
Who the hell is we?
Notre Dame Nation, bro.
Who the hell is we?
I could turn my camera around to see my Notre Dame flag, but then my charger will probably come out and then I'll probably go off the screen anyway. So
you gave us the tour of your house last week, Chris. We don't need it again.
In the dark.
Make sure you stay tuned. Again, we will share some of our clips of what we said about some of these teams. I did not put the Hurts stuff in there.
Oh my God.
Listen.
You got to hold yourself accountable, dude. You got to look yourself in the mirror.
It was only the records that I put in there. I didn't even think about going back to the fantasy stuff.
I'll try to find it, Chris. I'll try to dig it up and tweet it out.
It's there.
We need that.
It's there. And I was wrong for now. We'll see. Until next week, anything else, boys? We don't have to say go Birds, no game.
Yeah, let's enjoy a nice, relaxing weekend of football. Just get to, you know what I mean, sit back and not worry about the Eagles.
You want to give us some Sony Open picks?
Yo, man, look, I'll tell you what, I'm hurting over that loss, the Kyle Morikawa loss, but I'd be remiss if I said I wasn't ready to give you to fire away some two picks right now. You want
I'm
me
so happy you asked that.
So I'll keep it brief. The only thing that you need to know about the Sony Open is that almost always the winner comes from it's a guy that played in the Tournament of Champions the week before. Whether that's because they're already in Hawaii, they don't have to travel or whatever else, who knows? But it's almost always the case. I think it's all but one in the last like 9 years. So I picked two guys when I was looking at stats. I got Russell Henley at 22-1. He finished runner-up last year. He kind of choked last year to lose that tournament. And then I got Adam Svensson at 85-1, who had a pretty good tournament last weekend, striking the iron, striking the ball, but he didn't putt well. However, just to close it out, it might be the kind of weekend where you just take like Jordan Spieth and enjoy the weekend.
Nah, keep an eye on Cameron Davis. But
Tom Kim, dude, too. Tom Kim is a stud.
listen to those quotes, and then we're going to drop that beat.